Welcome to the Townsend Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, January 16th. I'm going to call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Sue Licio present.
Gordon Clark present.
And Cindy King is present. If you could join me in the pledge.
With me tonight, his wife.
Excuse me, Karen, I don't want to interrupt, but I just got a text that we don't have any sound. Oh, never mind. I just got a text back that says okay. Never mind.
Good work, Harley.
Yeah, good work. You fixed that right up. Okay.
So Carly doesn't feel well tonight, so she's not here with me. The idea is to have a variety show here in Memorial Hall on March 25th at 2 p.m. And that is why I'm here for a rental fee waiver. So the proceeds from that mission would help fund the John Whittemore Townsend Town Picnic, which he had already scheduled for August 25th on the Town Common from 12 to 4. The plan of the variety show, we will have information posted on the town site and various Facebook sites. We will be having an organizational meeting on next Thursday, which is January 25th at 7 p.m. in Meeting Hall B at the Senior Center Library Complex. So I'm here today, looking for your blessing of a rental fee waiver in order to have a variety show to help fund the town picnic, which is again scheduled for August 25th.
What's our rental fee?
It's only $100 or something.
$260?
Yeah.
Okay.
She printed out the policy.
Did I give you the policy? Would I be that good?
Do we have, do we know, well, of course we need the policy. Are there any legal restrictions on doing the fundraiser in town hall?
$250.
Okay, so it's, we'd be waiving a $250. It's, well, it's not a town event, but it's a town event. Not a government event, but it's a town event. Yes.
I just wondered, does the group, you mentioned a group getting together, do you have an official group name or?
Well, we will probably establish that next Thursday. I would say Variety Show Committee.
Okay, so it's just for this one?
This is for the variety show.
Just
and
for
of
the
course,
variety show.
we will, down the road, have one obviously for the picnic itself. But this specifically, we're meeting for the variety show in order to raise funds so we can have the picnic. John funded the majority of the
I remember. Yeah.
everything this past year, so.
Another question. Is this something that you'd be thinking of, like, setting up a nonprofit or whatever for, to be able to, I'm just thinking of the, to manage your finances and not have to pay taxes, et cetera,
Right. That may be down the road. Right now, I would say no, because right now we're just doing one variety show and then having the actual picnic. So we don't need to raise a tremendous amount of money. So I don't think, personally, I know I've been involved with 501c3s, and I really don't think it's warranted for this purpose. I think we'll set up an account at one of the local banks and be able to draw off that. And reality, tax-wise, it's not going to be that much for whoever's name is on it, because it's going to go in and then it's coming out. So,
Right now, we're just getting into the Memorial Hall waiver.
right.
So in terms of the waiver, could we ask the town administrator if there's any potential issues with this? Or?
No.
Okay.
No, it's been done in the past, actually.
And it's solely up to our discretion?
It is. Feel the power.
Is there a motion?
Yeah,
Madam Chairman?
Oh,
I'll wait there.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I don't mean to interrupt. I was listening to both of you. One quick thing here. First of all, thank you for coming. But just a little bit about, I happened to, lucky enough, and a lot of other citizens did, attended. There was John and all these people over the town hall. And I'll tell you, and I'm being completely sincere about this, it reminded me about what Townsend was like when I first moved here. And that's a tribute to John. I don't care what side you're on, this or this or that. Everyone was civilized to each other. Everyone was kind. Chief was over there. He's a hell of a hamburger flipper, all right, on his own time. But the point
Will
was
continue to be, right?
that we came there as Townsenites, and I saw that, and it was nice. And then, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I'm not good with dates, I'm getting old, but there was a beautiful thing here in the town hall, and we helped the vets out, and we helped out TEO there with donations. And people came, and it was so nice, the movie in there. And some nice people in town, it was just like, let's be Townsenites again. Let's forget about the hate and all this stuff, right? And it was so nice. So I would, Madam Chairman, to Sue, I couldn't endorse this more. That the other thing is, it's called the Great Hall. Well, let's do great things there besides once a year that we take the dust off and we go in there and 80 people show up to run the $20 million of the town. Let's let it come to life again, but for goodness and kindness. And just come and have a nice night. And so, tribute to John is I would be honored to second this if Sue would make the motion.
What do we want for a motion? Just to waive the,
Yes.
I move that the board waive the rental fee for the Great Hall for Karen Clement and her group for the March, what is it, March?
25th.
25th.
Proudly second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
And then, Chair,
Unanimous.
before Karen leaves, I did speak with the chief today, and the chief will provide police coverage if you needed a detail or anything, and he said that he'd be happy to do it himself personally, so.
Appreciate that.
Another nice piece.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for taking it on. All right, next on the agenda is 2.3. Kathleen Spofford, Town Clerk, regarding her fiscal year 19 budget.
Hi.
Hi, and this is part of our budget presentation.
Exactly. So I'm here tonight to talk about the budget. I'm from the town clerk's office, and the town clerk's office, we're here to serve the residents and the general public in a helpful, friendly manner, and run the elections properly, follow Mass General laws. I don't have a lot of changes on my budget. Do you have copies of the budget there?
It's in your books.
Carolyn just passed out the last part of
I
it.
think, was there a change emailed to us today?
There was a change in the elections budget due to
Okay.
early voting, and that's, should be the one that you have in there,
Oh, okay.
that I attached to the revised agenda.
Did you attach to the revised agenda? Oh, right here. Thank you, Carolyn.
So for the town clerk budget, 160, I'd like to add travel back in for $450. It was taken out, it was dropped last year. I'm not saying it was taken out, it was overlooked last year.
So it's 400 and something?
450.
Oh, there it is, okay.
And the other thing is to Oh, postage, $520. We have to send out drop notices, we call them, for people who didn't respond to the census, and they become inactive voters, and it's quite a lot of postage. And every year, we've been billed by the treasurer's office for it, and we have to kind of scramble for the money at the end of the year, so I'd like to put in postage for that. And those are the two changes for the town clerk budget, account number 160. Then, on the elections budget, it's gone down because we will hopefully have fewer elections this year, next year than we did this year. There's 3 scheduled. So that went down. I had to make an adjustment this past week, though, because I forgot about the early voting that we'll have in November.
Okay, so we got November, March. Is there March?
No.
it's not.
So it'll be September,
Oh,
November,
That's right, September.
and
Now,
April.
Is the primary changed?
yes,
To-
the day after Labor Day.
The state primary is September 4th, right?
Yes,
Okay. And the regular election is November 6th? 6th?
yeah,
I
the
think it's
first
the-
Tuesday
Okay.
in November. And for that election, there'll be early voting, 10 days early
Okay.
voting.
And then
So,
we
but
have
not
the
for the
town election
primary.
the following April.
Right. Okay, and the other, I don't believe there were any changes to the other budgets. Oh, I take that back, there was one. Oh, on the street listings, budget 164, to increase it to 3,500 from 3,300 for the street listings census. We send out so many. And there's been an increase in the households, plus the printing costs and everything go up.
I'm sorry, I missed those numbers, Kathy.
From 3,300 to 3,500 in the street listing budget. And that's about it. Everything else stays about the same.
Was that with you overall,
What's that?
overall increase, percentage?
Oh, I have no idea. It's all over the place.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Because some has gone down, it's probably down more than up because of the
Elections.
elections have gone down. Any other questions about that?
Madam Chair? You and Sue are all set?
I'm all set for now.
Sue, are you all set? Okay, thank you. I just have a question here,
Okay.
Madam Clerk. I see that you have nothing for training and professional development, and I know that you're frugal with your budgets, but the only concern I have is, and I'm not the professional that you are and your office is, but I see constant changes in election laws and rules and mass regulations from birth certificates to marriages, as that's changed and all that. And I think that there should be at least a token amount to allow you to, and your staff, to have training, because I just don't see how it's fair with all these constant changes and your legal responsibilities not to have training. I know we're trying to be frugal and this and that, but sometimes we cost us money when we have to defend maybe a bad decision that you didn't get the proper training. I know you try the hardest. So I didn't mean to bring this up at the last minute, but I would like if you would have a conversation with you and Mr. Kryler and whoever
Okay.
to think about that.
right,
I know you're trying to be tight to the dollar here, and I appreciate that, and the people of the town appreciate that. But every time I see this stuff come through, there's a change in the law.
Oh, yeah.
And to understand the change of law, you have to go get training.
Right.
And there's also not just law about elections. Everyone thinks about elections, but you're in charge, and correct me wrong, all marriage, birth, and as our society changes, the law changes. And so that I would like you and your staff to have the opportunity maybe if it's just a token one the first year and do an assessment, and I'm only speaking for myself, I would just appreciate that. I know we're all trying to be tight, money's tight this year, but
Okay.
sometimes I think training is a good investment. That's all I
Okay.
have to say, okay? So
All right,
thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for letting me speak to that.
Question?
Yeah, I just want, on that, I think they do go to things,
Right.
but they clearly aren't using that line item. They're using
Right,
salaries, and that's what the travel's for, to go to the town clerk.
Well, that's
meeting.
just for the travel expenses. So
Right,
if I
but-
stay overnight for mileage, but for the cost of the courses and everything, I usually take it out of professional services.
Oh, okay. So you are doing
Yes.
some of the trainings, you're just
Yes.
not, it's not on that particular line item.
Right, and the only thing I'm saying is, it's not my business, but I know that every day there's a new law passed that
Right.
affects you. So there may be a time, as this transition of all these new laws coming in, that you may need a few more seminars. That's all I'm saying.
And maybe it is a good thing to break it out
Yeah,
from
that's all.
professional
And so that,
services. Yeah,
if I can understand it, then everyone out there understand it. But I believe in training. One,
Yeah.
people can give the tools to do the job, but the other is we save money because we're doing it correctly. We're not
Right.
into civil liability.
right.
That's all my thoughts. I'm not trying to make a big thing out of it, and again, I appreciate what you do, and I know you're very tight with your budget, so thank you for everything you do.
Try.
I know you are, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Do we have a line item for conference and travel?
There's professional training, and then there's travel.
In-state,
in-
in-state travel, right?
Yeah,
Because you go to the Town Clerks Association for a lot of that training, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
but it's
I'm
all
just-
over the state.
Yeah, that's what I just brought up, that
Yeah,
I know they're doing that. and-
But it would be nice, I think, for us to see that consistently in the same account number, so that we
Right.
know how much each department, not just you, but each department is dedicating to training in terms of
Yeah,
money.
okay.
I didn't mean to cause a lot of work, it's just that
No, I'll just
I
go
want you to have the
through,
tools to do the job.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
I'll just go through what I usually spend every year. And,
And also anticipate what new laws are coming out.
right.
There's a lot of new laws coming out. No, there are. I mean, it's credible, and they affect us.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well,
right now-
and
Yeah,
it
I'm getting
seems
off
like
track
the
here.
clerk's
If you can just work
office
with Mr.
gets
Crowther
more and
your
more.
thoughts. All right, thank you for.
So,
And everybody goes to you for the questions, even if it's not their department.
Oh,
Even if
yeah.
it's not yours. Like,
oh, yeah, definitely.
where do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay, does anyone else have anything for Kathy on any of her?
Well, can I mention about the annual town election coming up? Can I do that now?
Yes, please do.
Okay, it will be April 23rd, 2018. Papers are now available. It's on the website under the town clerk's page, elections. There's a whole lot of openings. You can take out papers. Last day to take out papers is March 2nd, so you have from today to March 2nd to take out papers.
Has anyone picked up on it?
No,
No. Okay.
not yet.
No rush, no mad rush today.
That's right. And they'll need 34 valid signatures on the nomination papers, so. And the other thing is, we have dog licenses available. People are coming in to get them, so that's a good thing. But
And when is the deadline for that?
March 1st, the late fee begins. Middle of February, we will have the #1 dog tag contest again.
Hopefully it'll be a
We'll
little,
pick
a little more calmer than last year's drawing.
Yeah, really, isn't that the truth?
Hopefully people that day could be on their best behavior.
Yeah, so we will have that. And I think that's about all I have coming up. All right, thank you very much.
Can I,
Thanks, Kim.
in the presence of everyone, give you my census?
Sure.
I keep forgetting to drop it off in your office. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have at 2.4, at 6:30, we're a little early, but he's here. James Smith, Acting Highway Superintendent, regarding road treatment.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I asked Jim to come in just because we've now gone through some of the piddly little storms that actually oftentimes are more work because they just kind of drag on and there's not a lot of accumulation, but there's a lot of slippery stuff. And then we've had one pretty good sized storm that's put a lot of snow on us and one coming again tonight. So just to give Jim the opportunity to sit before you and entertain any questions you might have. So he'll just give you kind of a quick lay of the land about when they go out, what they do at first, and where they go from there, just so everybody's on the same page.
So basically what we do is, during a plowable event, we go out and treat 3 times. We'll put 3 applications down. We do a pre-treat, which is usually before, the snow starts. And then during the middle of the storm, we put another application down on our mains and our hills. What that does is helps keep the snowpack from forming. And then at the end of the storm, once everything's all cleaned up, we'll put another application down. That helps melt the rest of it off. So that's basically it. Pretty
What is
straightforward.
it? What is it? What is the application?
Salt brine mix. The salt brine mix is calcium chloride with a byproduct in there. What that does is helps adhere to the road. And the calcium helps work at lower temperatures. Usually that's during the pre-treat.
So the idea is to pre-treat, so you don't get the snowpack.
It's easier to melt the snow ice from the bottom up
Okay.
as it is down. But yeah. Sometimes you'll find that, the road will start, the snow will start adding up. It's not that we're not out there. There could be breakdowns where we'll have to shuffle people around a little bit. But we are out there and
I know that last storm, it was coming up, it was snowing quite a bit.
rather quickly, yes.
So you couldn't possibly be on all the streets at the same time.
Right, you gotta start somewhere, you gotta end somewhere.
Right.
Unfortunately, if I could snap my fingers, I would, but
Now, this storm, do you know what do we know what the prediction is for tonight's storm?
anywhere from.
It's all over the
Same,
board.
it's 5 to 8.
Iffy.
Changes every 5 minutes to typical New England? Now, we're talking about pre-treatment. Is there somebody out there now, or was it already done this afternoon?
No, an event like tonight, the officers would call us in, and then we'd go out and we'd treat. Once they start to see it snow.
It's snowing now.
I'm not gonna stay up all night and
No, but it's
watch the
snowing,
window.
it's snowing now, right?
Not really.
Oh, it was? Oh,
Yeah,
it's been on and off
Yeah,
then,
nothing really.
okay.
but, I plan on setting my alarm clock this evening, at 3 o'clock, and I'll look outside the window.
Oh, okay.
And typically, if we can get in at 3, we'll have everything all treated by rush hour,
Okay.
for the commute. So,
And is part of it also that we want to pre-treat and leave some of the snow down to activate the pre-treatment
yeah,
materials?
the more traffic you get, it helps, because it keeps it mealy. So that way there at the end, you can scrape it off. It's easier to scrape off, But you'll find some roads won't be as bare as others. Well, that's because of traffic, So the more traffic you get on it, like you'll see Route 13 always cleans up real nice, it gets a lot of traffic. 119, they put a lot of material to
Yeah, the
the
state's
state.
different. They have a different budget.
Yeah.
But,
maybe between 19, yes.
I know, I remember when we were first talking about getting this done, there was this little class. I think you were there, and I wasn't able to attend the whole thing, but I think one of the things I remember them talking about was you don't want to treat, then plow. You need to have some time.
You gotta have a time to work in.
If you treat, like when we had
You're just
sand,
wasting it.
when we had sand, you might have a sand truck, no, you'd have the plow truck and then the sand truck sometimes, maybe the same truck.
Right.
But you can't really do that with this new, you need to treat, leave some
Let it-
time.
Right.
Even
Let it
letting
work.
even a few inches of snow pile up so that
Yeah.
it's going to work. Because if you
Yes.
plow it up too soon, you just wasted all that money and
Right.
time that you just laid out the salt mix.
Right. And like I said, we've been doing it pretty consistently with the 3 applications, and it really seems to be working well. I mean, we've had some pretty tricky storms this year, with the below average temps. And, the ice, that's always a tricky one. So, and at the end of it, I think our roads look pretty good,
Madam Chair, on that point, I can tell you, I come through 3 small towns on the way to work, and it's a noticeable difference when I get to the top of the hill, coming down Wheeler into town. It's right at the line, it's clean.
I wouldn't come down that road myself in a snowstorm. I wouldn't.
It's well, testament to the crew is, I mean, they do a really
They
nice
work
job.
hard at it.
Yeah.
I trust
They
them,
do
but
a-
I
They do a fantastic job, they really do.
Great.
They take it pretty serious.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
When you're so done, I just want first of all, I want to tell you sincerely that no less than 20 citizens, a couple came to my door, and they were nice, but they came to my door, well, you never know, but they were nice, and they said, I have to tell you, when I travel, and a couple of them I actually work, construction companies, they work for municipalities, and they said to me, I could have a blinder on, and I know when I hit towns and roads now.
Yeah.
And from where we came, and this, and I said, well, that's great, and thank you, but it's the people out there to do the job. But we're doing science now, and not getting into a science class here is, but we used to, before, use sand, which dilutes salt. We don't use any more salt, folks, all right?
Sand.
Yeah, and sand is hazardous waste now, so we're saving a fortune there, and our salt doesn't get to, but the other is, we used to melt snow down, full snow.
Right.
We melt from ground up now. And that's science, all right? And that's people with a lot more brains than me and this. And the other thing is, Ed started it and you're continuing it, and it's a learning curve. It's, you know,
It's
how to
working
mix
great.
it, but you're doing a great job. But some people out there, and I was amazed, because before I ran, and I was a citizen for a few years here, we used to have like some of the worst roads, to tell you, when I first here. But I didn't know that when I first came here, there was over 10 employees up there.
Yeah.
How many employees do you have now?
Full-time,
Yes.
5. There's 5 of us.
Right, including the mechanic.
Right.
Right, you didn't have one that before. So you're at least half the staff, all right? And people back then didn't say, I know when I'm in Townsend, because the roads are good. They used to say exactly the other. So that's a tribute to your employees and to the people in the town who were enlightened enough to do best practices. And it's also, it's been hugely environmental. We don't have to pay to clean out the drains as much.
Right.
You know, I've said this before, but
Sweet
sometimes
thing.
you have to keep education, you know, and
Yep.
the other thing is, we're not going out and buy those expensive street sweepers every couple of years, or
Right.
we're buying them every 10 years, you know. So it's been a total success, and thank you. If you could, for all the townspeople, could you please tell them that when the rest of us are asleep and we wake up to go to work, or we need an ambulance in the night, because of them, we're getting it. Well, sometimes we forget to do that. It's a
Yeah.
tough job.
Yeah.
So to your staff, from me, and I hope from the citizens, thanks for doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know sometimes some residents don't get the word. You still have the sand salt mix that we can go get?
We do, for the residents.
That we can go put in
Yes.
buckets and have
So-
for our sidewalks and driveways?
Yep, yeah, and we do the sidewalks as well, and for the residents. So it's up in the back left-hand corner behind them.
Under video surveillance, which I was implementing, putting in there now, so that towns and residents go up and take what you need, out of towners, stay out.
Stay home.
Because you're on video.
I have a question.
Okay.
How many other contractors do we have to hire for a storm like we had the last time?
Well, we have a set amount, and I actually don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, just
They're,
approximate. I mean, does it double your
10.
workforce, or, yeah, just
You know,
about then?
10 other trucks. And we've been having some issues in a certain area where we've had some trucks down, but I can assure you that I have a handle on that, and we're getting that squared away.
Okay, and what should residents do if they are concerned about their road or the roads that they're traveling on or need to travel on?
Call the office. I mean, I check in. I'm out plowing, so I can't be answering the phone during a storm because I'm out there with the guys. So, but when I come back, I'll come in, check the messages, you know, check emails, and then I'm right back out there.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
I think it's important.
Yeah, the other thing that works well is, Sue, you would text me. Someone calls you, you were texting me, and I'm texting Jim while he's out on the truck, so he's in real time getting your message. So if people are calling you, you can feel free to continue
I don't
doing
want my
that.
plow people plowing while they're texting, though, please. No, please. No.
So the best number to call is the highway department number for the general public, should be, if they have a concern. What about
Unless they all
calling?
want to call Jim.
Right, well, yeah.
Absolutely,
The
absolutely.
best, I'm trying to
evaluation
get the
coming up?
best. So would that be better than calling dispatch?
Or dispatch.
Okay.
But dispatch will have to call my cell phone because
Okay.
they can't reach us over the
Right.
yeah.
So,
So dispatch or call the office. Like I
Okay.
said, I'm always checking in. So, emails as well.
okay, okay. All right. Anyone have anything else?
And hopefully tomorrow morning we'll have them nice and clear for everybody to go to work.
Thanks, Jim.
Get some rest, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay. And next up, I see that we have some representation from the water department, so they're not scheduled to 6:45, but water commissioners regarding staffing. We don't have the whole...
Thank you for putting us on your
We have a
agenda.
quorum. We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, but we are not posted for a meeting, so
Oh, I
you're
see.
dealing with me
Okay.
tonight. So, I take it you've all received the additional information that we
We
sent?
did, thank you.
So, if there's no other questions, leave it up to your board here to make a decision.
I have a couple. First one, how are you coming on hiring the replacement guy?
It's posted. We have to, according to the contract, we have to offer it to the union employees first. It's in the contract to advertise it 7 days and then see if there's any applicants. If not, it goes in an additional 7 days to newspaper.
Okay, have you had any applicants yet?
We've had a couple, none from the union. We posted it here and at the highway garage.
But you're getting some people from other places? Any experienced people?
We've been getting-
Can I even ask that at this room?
None that has the required licenses.
Oh, okay. Now, you're gonna...
Some that have licenses, but nothing to do, they have boiler licenses or something like that, but
Okay, I'm jumping into the other job as well on this question, but do you need, between the two positions, do you need, when you're hiring, do you need one of them to have their licenses?
it would be preferred, yes.
Okay.
But that's highly unlikely there's people out there with water licenses, unless they're coming from another water department or water district.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have anything? I'll
Quick
defer to-
question on that.
Anyone?
Paul, do you send it out to like the violas or, it's not Earth Tech anymore, I forget what they go by these days, but any of the people that do private ops, see if any of their folks?
No, I just,
'Cause sometimes they'd like to jump from private where, it's not as secure to a,
I send it out, I put it in, I will be put in the newspaper, but I have access to about 60 other water suppliers, so they will have that as well, so.
Question? I'm sorry, what was the organization you were talking about?
these are the private contractors that operate water departments for municipalities. Veolia is one, I forget the name, United Water. Again, I don't think they go by that name anymore either, but they have private companies that do municipal water operations, so some of their employees will shuttle back and forth.
Oh, you're talking about the companies that privatize?
Yeah.
Like Pennachuck Water and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Also municipalities, universities have water staffs, they have no.
Sometimes they'll like to get into a municipal gate that's a little more secure.
I don't send them specifically, but hopefully they're looking at the ads and so.
I like that idea. It's maybe worth looking into, because my concern is that in terms of pay scales across the state, we probably are not
We're very-
high up there.
Very low.
So you want to look at another audience to try to market that job, especially because it's it's kind of an entry-level job. And if somebody's looking to move from one kind of organization to another, that might be the place that you'd get their attention.
We'll look at all avenues for sure.
Yeah.
I happen to think that that's a by Sue and Jim, that's a very good idea. And if you find places to advertise that, could you just send that to Mr. Crowther or advise where you did seek? I think we need to, our talent pool, we need to become creative to get people to think about coming here. And like Jim said, we may be able to offer things that they might not get in the private sector. So if you could think outside the box with that and send it to
As I
Mr.
said,
Crowther.
any avenue, any and all avenues to
Jim's
advertise
got
that.
25 years' experience, maybe between the two of you. You could come up with some, but I agree with Sue and Jim.
Because
So
you're
it's-
down, I mean, you're not just, I mean, you've been asking for additional staffing. Now you're down a person, and the person you're down had a lot of experience.
Mhm, yeah,
So
absolutely.
opening that pool,
Yep.
getting that advertising out, even
I think Sue and
across the
Jim are
state.
100% right. Let's open it up. Let's get.
You're willing to do entry level, I mean, but there's probably people in, that might be, well, you live in New Hampshire, but across that state line that might just need to transfer their licenses to come down.
But I
I don't
think
know, I'm
Jim's-
assuming reciprocity is available.
As I said, we're open to all,
Get those ads advertised.
any and all
out there.
opportunities,
Get 'em.
because it's, if it's, somebody applies that doesn't have a license, it's going to be a lot of burden on myself and Mike for 2 years, because unlicensed person is the work within the job is very limited, has the limitations on what they can do, and then they can't take on call until they get the required licenses, so.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the entire request that the water department has made? They've requested, the replacement position that we've been talking about is already.
Could you clarify that we've already agreed?
We already did.
So
We
it's
are,
not a
that's what I'm
question.
saying,
Well,
we're
it
just
gets
getting
me-
an update.
All due respect, is it, I get
That's all.
confused when I'm sitting up here.
Right, that's why I'm saying.
So we
We're-
need to break it down.
we're
One's
clear-
already been approved, the
We're
surgeon.
We're clear on the replacement position,
Thank you.
and we're just getting an update on posting, making sure that that's well posted and providing support. We want to support you to get that position filled. Now, as far as, we have another water tech or water operator position that you're requesting. We asked you to come back with additional information about that, and you had also requested for an office staff position, which you sent us, I understand, you're asking that, you're no longer asking for the office staff.
Yeah, for right now, we're going to remain with our contracted person, and for the time being.
Okay. Before I pass it on to my colleagues here, on that office position, is that supported in your budget? Do you have can your budget accommodate that?
Yeah.
What's already in the budget and extend?
Well-
And the person that was in that is a retired municipal employee, is that my understanding?
Yes.
Are you in a crunch as far as how many hours? They can only work so many hours in a year, right?
960.
Correct.
They can only, or that's how many hours or how much money?
That's how many hours they
How
can
many?
work in a year.
Okay.
But not to exceed a certain cash value.
Yeah.
In their case, it would
Yeah,
not.
sure.
And you work with...
That's
the-
all we're really requesting, so.
So,
To cover, I mean, kind of what they've already worked. This by fiscal year, right? July 1st, Jim?
I'm sorry.
She can only work July 1st to June 30th?
The 960, correct.
So what she's already worked all the way up to June 30th can't be over 960. I'm assuming you've talked to her about this.
Over 19 hours per week. Is that what?
No, 960 hours in the entire fiscal year.
Yeah, she's limited to.
So if she
her
gets
number.
900 in April 30th, then she has to take 2 months off.
Right.
And then depending on what you're planning for, I don't know what you're planning.
I mean, right now, it's kind of, not mostly on an as-needed basis, but, I mean, there's some weeks that, because of her commitments or whatever,
Okay.
she might work 10 hours this week, and,
Oh, I see,
you know,
okay.
so.
Now, are you planning on, it's separate, it's not gonna, as far as I'm concerned, it's not gonna impact on my decision-making tonight. But are you planning on, I'm more thinking about your budget for July 1st. Are you planning on coming to us or including that position in the budget for the next fiscal year 19?
Well, yes, but
So you want to, no, the position that you've declined on, you want to actually hire somebody for July 1st? Or are you going to stay with the contracted person and it's an indefinite decision?
I believe that we are staying with the contracted person for the time being.
Okay.
But
I mean, I don't want
there may be
I don't
further
want you to come
discussion
back
down
in
the
a month,
road.
in 45 days and say, okay, now we're doing next year's budget, we want to ask.
That will not be the case.
Okay, that's all I just, because if we're going to do, we might as well have the conversation now. If we're gonna- Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to be back on record again with the position we received from town council originally on this matter, which was based on the pending litigation between the water department and the town proper, that no hiring moves be proceeded with unless it was an emergency, which is why with the filling of the current but vacant position, it was okay to proceed because it was deemed by the chair of the water board to be an emergency. I've not heard it articulated that this position is also an emergency, but I just wanted to make certain that was clear again before you proceed with any additional deliberations.
Madam Chairman? Sue, do you want?
I was just gonna,
Go ahead.
I wasn't clear on why they were saying that. Why would town council say that it needed to be justified in that manner?
Case law.
Because the very subject matter that is at dispute between the parties is personnel. And given that that's by choice of the water commissioners currently being litigated, so as to not prejudice the town proper's position, council recommended not making any appointments until the matter is resolved. We then heard from council that if it's deemed an emergency, then that's justifiable. If not, status quo was the recommendation.
And we did get that language for it, which I would agree.
Correct.
That the last position that we replaced.
And it may be that this is also an emergency. I've not seen it in the writings, nor have I heard it in any of the speaking, that the filling of this additional position is also an emergency.
Madam
I
Chair?
don't know how much more forecast I can do for you
Stick
guys.
with my board and then I'll go to you. Let's see.
I'm trying to remember the document that we got before that, I think it was a letter from you, Nathan, talking about the needs in the department. But I honestly can't remember if it talked about both those positions or just the one that was leaving. Could we ask Nathan to respond to that?
Yes.
I would like to say something before we
Okay.
go to the other
Yeah,
spots.
we'll get
Sure,
get
do your
these
thing.
guys settled and then we'll go to answering the question.
Only if Sue's done. I don't want to interrupt
Okay.
her.
Well,
She won't be done
I
until
asked
after.
if
Well,
some-
I don't want,
Okay.
But I asked if
Okay.
somebody
All right.
could
Okay.
answer my question from,
well, I would like to say something before we go to that. That's all right, with all due respect.
Okay,
All right,
please go.
thank- All right, thank you. It's not to cut Sue off, but the board should discuss
We'll get
before.
back. I do want to
I
get
think-
back.
well, I understand.
Okay, hold
but-
on, hold
no,
on.
No,
We're gonna
there's
let
a
Gordy
point of
go.
order here, okay? And that is that my understanding is that a board member may ask someone in the audience to answer, to speak. And that's what I was doing in light of my question. So I just wanted
Okay.
that conversation to finish.
All right, just
I mean, you don't have to, I'm just saying why I feel that
well,
way.
I don't have to, exactly. I want, it's my responsibility to keep the order of the process going here. And the way I'm choosing to do it is to have everybody's questions out first before we have a complete cross dialogue, which happened last time. I'd like to keep things as orderly as possible, but I'd like to start with,
Thank
there's a
you.
lot of questions and comments, I know, coming from the
And
board.
Sue's point is, she's absolutely has a right to ask questions on this, but my point of order is the reason we go to the board members is I'm going to give my point of view that we shouldn't even be having this conversation at all. So that's why my conversation needs to take place before Sue asks someone else outside of our board. And so what my point of order at this point is going to be is that I think we're in direct, foolishness here or lack of good judgment to go against town council, that we're spending an immense amount of money, which I don't want to, but we have to, and we're undermining his ability to litigate for us. And the other thing is, going in, if you are ever been on emergency calls like this, there's case law that you cannot create an emergency. Where it's like the chief here, to order in, you have to declare an emergency before you can take action on an emergency. So there's case law that you just can't create. But we also, more important than that, I'm not an expert on that, but I know that exists. But I am knowledgeable that we have town council who's telling us that we should not be communicating at this point about this. We're in litigation, we're undermining the money we're spending, and this may be all of your point. So my point is, I don't think we should be having any conversation, because I don't think an emergency exists. We were very understanding in that they had current levels, not new positions, that need to be replaced. That I can understand would be an emergency, you don't have coverage. To add additional help, unless it's articulated through town council, I don't think it's an emergency, so I don't think we should be having the discussion at all. That's my point.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue, for your patience.
All right, and I'm going to say one more thing regarding, then you can go, I promise, I promise. I just, in response to Gordy, I know last time we asked you to come back, so, and you came back, and I appreciate that, and you sent some documentation, so I appreciate that we're following through with what we asked you to do last meeting, or the last time we met. I don't know if it was our last meeting or the last time we met, but, so we're just following up on.
And Madam Chairman, just one quick thing to you. We also did invite them back, and thank you for coming, but we also did instruct the board, Town Administrator Kryler, to contact council on these matters.
Okay.
In which he's
All right.
done. And that's
All right.
information now has been given to us.
Okay, all right, so now I'm going to go to Nathan.
So it is, in my opinion, that hiring an additional water tech at this time would be appropriate, and I do believe that it is an emergency. And I can explain if you'd like.
Please.
So we have a old infrastructure here in Townsend. It's about 100 years old, would you say? Some parts, thereabouts?
80, 85 years old,
Okay.
1934.
So I don't want to get too far into water, because you guys are your Board of Selectmen, we're a Board of Water Commissioners. So I'll relate to something that everybody can relate to. Everybody has a vehicle, right? So if you have a vehicle and you got a nail in your tire, yeah, you can drive around on it, and you'd probably be fine, but you really should get the nail removed and get the tire patched. Otherwise, the tire can go flat and leave you stranded. The tire can blow up. Or nothing can happen and the nail holds the air in. So, with that being said, I want to reiterate what I said before. I do believe that this is an emergency situation.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm just concerned about the quality of my water. I am really concerned, and I'm going to tell you why. I have a fish tank, freshwater fish tank. I have had to resort to either getting basically distilled water in order to add to my fish tank to keep the balance of chemicals correct. And one of them is nitrites. And all of the reading that I've done, because there's 10 lousy little fish in this 10-gallon tank, you'd think I'd just give it up. But I've had it forever, and it's never been this difficult to keep in balance before. I have plants growing out of it now because plants help by using that, okay? And I still can't get it in balance. So I'm doing like half water changes with distilled water, and I'm reading about it and it says, well, you know, if your tap water is high in nitrites, then there's not much you can do about it. And so I start reading, and we've got all kinds of fertilizer that people put down, and all kinds of chemicals that people put down, and all kinds of chemicals that we're throwing on the roads. No offense to the conversation we had earlier, but I'm concerned about all of those chemicals going into my water, and I want the right number of people, personnel who know what they're doing, watching my water quality. I'm actually thinking, gee, it would be nice once in a while if the water department had the time and resources to put out a flyer, especially to the new people in town, about be careful with your septic tank, make sure it's cleaned out every 2 years, because people coming from outside don't know what a septic tank is. They're just used to flushing the toilet. Okay? Little things like, you know, watch out how many chemicals you're putting on your lawn. Think about alternatives to that. I'm really concerned. And we can sit here and banter back and forth about, is it an emergency or not? Well, I'll tell you something, my fish are gonna die pretty soon, because I just can't keep doing that. I can't. I can't keep it in balance. Now, I don't know if anybody else in town has that problem, but to me, that's symptomatic of, we gotta do something.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
To Sue's point about wanting to or needing to do something, and I think Nathan understands this from our conversation, initially the board's position was no, we're in litigation, we're not going to entertain this discussion. We found kind of a keyhole to wiggle through in order to open the door to a conversation by asking Nate if he could say that it was an emergency. He then came back and said it's an emergency, so we're able to do it. When we met at the last time, my belief was that was clear again, that when you come back, you know what the key words are in order to have the board be able to take the action you're seeking and still be square with council. It didn't come back in any of the prepared documents. I know Nate has said it sitting here tonight, and that's left for you to judge whether you think that that's sufficient. And I know it gets weird because it's about health and safety. It's about your water. It's about your fish. It's not just somebody that's pushing papers in another office somewhere. But I have an obligation just to make you aware that that's what council has advised. So if you feel that you can safely fit in that four corners.
Okay, Jim, could I ask you, you have the, I don't, my packet for that.
Yeah.
I don't have a copy of that.
Yeah.
Could you possibly read aloud? Because I know we're all sitting here and talking about what something says. If it's not too much reading, can you read the justification that he did give, or they gave for the new position?
Certainly. As the water distribution system grows, so do the staffing needs of the department. In addition to reasons for this position already provided to the board, this addition to our staff would add assistance in effectively maintaining and operating the public water supply, assist in complying with our ever-changing state and federal regulations, assist in providing our customers with excellent customer service they deserve, assist in providing safe, healthy drinking water for consumption, economic growth of the community, and fire protection. Successive staff planning is essential to any business or department in the water industry in order to effectively perform all of the duties and requirements associated with the position of water operator. The person is required to possess certified licensing in the areas of distribution and treatment. Without proper licensing sets limitations on the duties the individual can perform. Most notably is taking on-call and responding to emergencies. Acquisition of the proper licensing can take up to 2 years, not allowing the water department to hire additional staff when originally requested in 2015 has and will put a significant burden on the current staff during the time it takes for a new employee to acquire the proper licensing. The Board of Water Commissioners have discussed the need to increase our staff in length as evidenced in the enclosed attachments B through N. Also see letters to the Board of Water Commissioners, to the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator dated August 14th, 2017, attachment O, that once again points out these positions were funded and approved at the May 2017 town meeting and the Commissioner's desire to post the job. The letter dated November 13th, 2017, attachment A, that once again points out the Commissioner's desire to post the job and the importance the added water tech would mean towards providing safe, healthy drinking water to our customers.
I have to agree, there's nothing in there that says anything about an emergency. In fact, it even said, well, there's two conflicting statements in there. One that says it's I'm adding the word critical, but it's at least important that a person must be licensed. And then further on, you said it takes up to 2 years for someone to get licensed. So we need somebody now so that we can, the burden can be resolved within 2 years. But if it's an emergency, then you need somebody, you need to hire, if it were an emergency, if it were a justified emergency, you'd need to hire somebody now that has a license, not somebody that, it would not be, an emergency can't be an entry-level person that needs to be trained. Just using my own logic. Things that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, or words into another letter, but things like Sue's fish, the water, the quality of the water, we're unable to keep up with the necessary quality of the water. There are problems with the water we're unable to keep up with our current staff. Our testing is showing that we've got problems and we need to correct them, and we're unable to do that with our current staffing levels. There's equipment that's broken, we need to get that repaired, and we don't have the staff to do that. We're short-staffed, we cannot do the things that are required to maintain. We're unable to do our job with our current staffing. Not assist in doing, we need additional personnel to be on call, we need additional personnel would be assisting in or make the burden less on, which is really what that letter stated. It doesn't say that there's any. I can understand when people are short-staffed in any business or any work, that it makes it easier to do the job, but it doesn't mean your job's impossible. I think all of our departments have been short-staffed throughout the years that you've been asking. But where town council has advised us that if there's an emergency, that I have to agree with Jim that that's not there. The only thing that I'm thinking at this point is if give you another chance. I mean, I'll do this every week if you want, to come up with a letter that is really honestly saying what is the emergency need. What is not going on that in the water, in taking care of our water, that you can't do with the current staffing, or that's not being done because of the current staffing. I think Sue's Fish is an example that if there's something that needs to be done with the water and you're unable to make it safe for her fish or anyone else's fish or ourselves, can we drink if the fish aren't doing well, can we drink the water? Are there other issues that we need to be aware of? Those are some of the things those are emergencies, that we've got some failings in our ability to provide safe water to the community. That would be an emergency.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to go to them now.
So
Then I'll come back to you.
what I would recommend happens tonight, because we don't want to spin our wheels here, not to make another vehicular reference, but is we should, I'll give you a letter, and tonight I'm sure everybody in town would appreciate if you were to agree to sign for this extra position, pending you get a letter with the correct wording that satisfies the board.
That's not the point of my statement, to say that I want you to just, I'm not trying to tell you,
So-
these are the words I want to see on a letter. I want the words to be true, like, because Sue just testified about her fish, doesn't mean that you might say that's not the water. I don't know.
Well,
But you need to
that's-
tell us if there's something wrong with the water. You need to put that in a letter. Not because Cindy said. I'm not saying, okay, Cindy said there's a problem with the water, therefore she wants us to write in a letter that there's a problem with the water. It doesn't mean there's a problem with the water, but it has nothing to do with. I'm just giving you things that constitute an emergency and examples that you need to go back and look at what's going on in the water department that constitutes an emergency for hiring this next person. I'm not going to even ask the board to sign any letter that says we're going to let you hire somebody because you're going to give us a letter that has the right wording. If I don't see you as a commission and superintendent to say that there is an emergency going on in the water department, I can't personally support it. I mean, we're here, we can have a vote on it, but my hunch is that it's not going to.
I'd like to move this along. Could I make a suggestion?
Actually, Gordy was.
Oh,
Gordy,
I'm sorry.
Gordy, I
Thank you.
put
I'll be
Gordy on
brief.
hold a minute.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for your consideration.
Okay.
I'll try to be brief for Sue. I'm glad to say that on 2 points I agree with you, Madam Chairman, and I agree with Sue. On the first point of your point here is that I believe that we have to follow town council. We didn't ask to be in this expensive thing of litigation, so we need to follow. And the other thing is, there's case law out there. You cannot create emergency. That's not for discussion here. And so that town council, it would be quite challenging to go through to see if there actually is emergency, because there's actually, declaring an emergency is just not a simple thing. So I have to agree with you is that emergency does not exist in my opinion, and so we shouldn't be considering it. I'll make that quick, so Sue can have her chance. And then the second thing is, first of all, Sue, I hope your fish makes it here. We all love little things that give us peace in our lives, and I hope he makes it. But to the thing of quality, I agree with Sue. We do care about clean water. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kryler, but we have an open invitation to the water commissioners to come back and have a meeting with us. And I would glad to, if the board agreed, I'd love to have the AV people come in here and put the screen down so people see it, so we can put the points up there of water quality from the state on the deficits in our water system. And facts, not this or that. Put it right up there, line by line, all the deficits that the experts in the state said we have with our system. I don't know enough, so let's put it up there, folks. We've invited them, they haven't come. And I'll tell you, many of you citizens have come with me questions, and I told you I don't know the answer. Like, many of them asked me, how come we put pool shark in the water? I don't have the answer. So we have the meeting, we'll put, first of all, the deficits from the state, and then questions like about why we put pool shark in. I don't have a clue. We invited them several times. Please, come. Nothing to be discussed except for that deficit report. We'll put it right there, nice and proud. Everyone can see it, transparency. And then if you have, we'll give a chance to have questions asked. That's the answer about clean water. With professionals and answer what the state's told us about our water system. That's a separate issue, but Sue's correct. Our water matters, and I agree with you. When I first moved here, people used to come to my house and take the water from our wells and take it home and brag about it.
Me too.
That's when it was run by a private company. I don't know if things have changed in the earth since then. Maybe they have. Well, let's get that thing there with the 25.
Towns of water everywhere.
Yes, we used to brag about it from Witches Brook. But is it 25 deficits from the state, Mr. Crowley?
I don't recall. But
There's a number, right? There's more than one or two, right?
Yeah.
So we'll put them up here on the screen and very professionally go down, explain them to us one to one. That's public information about your water, because if you don't have clean water, your house is worth nothing, folks. And the subject. There's not an emergency, and let's find out about clean
Yeah,
water.
and
I'd like to move
just
on.
to get back to what I was saying about I'll do this every week, I want to back off a little bit on that.
Yes, please.
Just say, because I don't necessarily want to do this every week. But I don't want to, if we have an emergency in our water and it's just about administrative ability to write this letter, I don't want a water emergency to exist and it's a grammar problem. If you have, I would ask that if you think, if there is an emergency over there, work with Jim to write this letter, or to identify what the points are, so that if we need to go to town council again, I don't want to do this every week and just we all look silly, to have somebody else determine whether there is an emergency, whether it's going to meet what our town council is recommending that we do with this business. Maybe the other stuff will get, the litigation, I don't even know where that is. But, and then whatever those emergencies are, we can address whether or not, somebody can address whether or not filling the staff is the adequate position. But as it stands tonight, the letter, the documentation reiterates just asking for staffing, and all the letters and Board of Water Commissioners minutes doesn't really justify an emergency in the water department at the time. But because of the current litigation, and our town council has made a recommendation, I'm recommending that we don't move forward at this time, but I invite you to communicate with Jim outside of our meetings, and Jim can come back to us if need be, and then talk to town council about any follow-up on filling this position. But I don't, if there is an emergency, I definitely don't want to keep you from having that, and I mean that. I mean that sincerely. If there's an emergency over there, I want to get it addressed. But so far, I haven't heard the justification for them other than helping, just helping.
I'd just like to say that first of all, I don't think we should be even talking about, this is a separate issue from the litigation that's pending. this is a department that's trying to improve itself, improve its customer service. I just, it baffles me the scrutiny that we're under, where I've seen other departments come in here and simply say to you, we need this person to improve customer service, and they get approved, no problem. And I'd also like to rebut Selectman's clerk assertion that the water quality is under question. The water quality of the Townsend Water Department continues to meet or exceed all state and federal standards. I understand,
Unless
I
you're
understand,
Okay, just...
it's not out of line.
She's the chairman,
Okay,
she'll
hold
determine
on.
it's out of
All right,
line.
Gordy, all right, enough. Let's keep going.
I understand Ms. Lucio's concern about the water quality. Don't necessarily agree with the whole, concerned about your fish, but using the analogy that maybe question with the water quality, like I said, the water quality still meets or exceed all standards. Somebody's other fish tank could be running very well. But I don't want this, with the discussion in the board here, is putting a perception out in the public that there's a problem with water quality. And I just want to set the record straight, there is no problem with the water quality.
Well, that came up with the fish. We weren't talking about water quality.
May
until the
I?
fish
That's
started.
how,
Okay.
that-
I want to put this to bed, so I just want to say that, just respond to one thing, I shouldn't get into the litigation itself, but I disagree with your statement about litigation has nothing to do with it, because I believe part of the litigation is saying that the water committee, or the water department commissioners, end of that litigation is to say that you shouldn't have to come here at all because you're an independent organization. So that litigation about hiring personnel has everything to do with why we're sitting here and why our town council wants us to sit on hold. So 100% that litigation is what prevents us from acting at all. I don't want to, I'm not an attorney, I don't want to get into my theory on why, but we just can't do it without it having, and our town council has said, okay, if there's an emergency, you certainly shouldn't have the water shut down because you're short of personnel. So I want to end the questions right now, and I'm going to ask, unless my board has any other questions or comments, if we're going to, there is an agenda item, I'll certainly entertain a motion so that we can go to the next item on our agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the board postpone any decision on this until such time as we receive more definitive documentation on the state of the emergency at state. And I believe we have a meeting for next week. There's no reason why, if we don't get that information, we wouldn't be able to add it to next week's meeting.
All due respect, I can't second that because I don't think it's tight enough that we're in litigation. That was the way it's designed. I'm sort of concerned how it's written. Not against Sue, it's just that we're in litigation and the motion needs to be concise, that we're not back here spinning our wheels. You've already said, Madam Chairman, if
How about if we just make because what I had said is that the board, the commissioners talk to Jim offline and make those determinations, but just if I'm asking if you can make your motion simply to postpone at this time this decision. Since you were going that way anyway.
Yeah,
I'm not-
that's fine. I move that we postpone a decision on this until we have more information that's in line with...
it's gotta be-
All right, then you make the motion.
Absolutely, if it's all right, no disrespect, I make a motion that we move on to 3.1 at this time.
No.
Okay, cool.
It's an item on the agenda. We've had
Okay.
discussion. It deserves some kind of a vote, even if it's to table it until another
Okay.
time.
I'll do that, if you make
All
that
right,
motion
I would
to
like to
table.
ask, all right, I'd like to ask the town administrator, just the proper procedure for moving on, for the chair to move on without even having a motion on this item.
Well, if I make a motion and nobody seconds it, it dies anyway.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
let's do it that
there's no
way.
requirement. It says votes may be taken.
Okay.
So implicit in that is they also may not. So it's not required, but
Okay. I'm just going to move on.
So I withdraw my motion.
Thank you very much for seeing us and having us added to your agenda. I hope we can,
I hope
solve
we
this
can
matter
resolve
in the
this.
future. It's
That's
very
fine.
serious.
Madam Chairman, can I just take 10 seconds? All this talk of water, I need to get a bottle of water out there, please.
Okay,
Does anyone need one? Go and get it.
Can we have a motion for a 5-minute recess?
I only need a minute, so.
Well, we might as well take a 5-minute.
I move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye. Ready to sign? Here we go.
All right, welcome back. We're going to move on to 3.1. Review and approve common victualler licenses.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 common victualler license renewal for the ice cream factory at 7 Elm Street, Townsend.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
3.2.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve and sign a 2018 common victualler license renewal for Quick Service Restaurant Subway, 18 Main Street, Unit 10, Townsend.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you buy that?
Yes. 3.3.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Oh, review and approve, I thought we had another one. It's review and approve updated policy for the Townsend Meeting Hall.
I think we have some folks in the audience for this one.
Yes. Come on up. Well, do we have any questions?
I do, Madam Chairman,
Okay.
but I'll wait to,
Okay.
I think Susan will. So.
Go ahead, Gordon.
I have to be honest with you, I didn't review this because I didn't see it in all my stuff, so I did a quick thing here, and first of all, thank you for doing this. The meeting hall is a great asset, and how you people run it, it's a great asset to our community. If you go to the board members and to you folks out here, as Jim will tell you, I tortured him for 1.5 years during negotiations on little words. So, where it says town meeting hall policy, revised 2017, if you go down to the libraries and senior center programs have priority in scheduling events for town's meeting hall. Makes sense. Other groups or individuals may schedule use of the room on a first come, first served basis. Now, this is just on my experience other places. I like to, in policy, think about how to, so it's not to say that this isn't a good policy, just a thing here. I would like a discussion with the members and you is that I would like, before it says other groups or individuals, there may be something in the line, Jim or you could clean it up a little nicer, but that would say town departments are next in line for use.
I can understand that, yeah.
All right? And then after that, I would like to say, then Townsend residents. Now, you
Okay.
wouldn't think that, but the policy doesn't say Townsend residents. Okay? And so, again, I drove him nuts for 1.5 years.
No, that's
But at the end, we have a product that you don't have to come back with product. That's all. So this isn't criticism. I can't tell you what an asset that place, everyone knows that, I don't have to tell you that. And then the last thing is, I've seen in the past and different things, when we form list, first come, first served basis. Now, in normal, if we're selling something but when people want something that's valuable, well, first come, first serve, not you people, but if there's a different board, they could come in and say, 2 years from now, I want it for my wedding. So you have to have, when can you be first on the list? Before the, it sounds, but, and I don't want to nitpick, I actually want it so you do it once, and the boards that follow you, well, this is good. So besides that, in my speed read here, which I apologize for, Do you think that's all right, Mr. Crowell?
Yeah, I think
He has
so.
a lot more experience with writing these things than me, so.
And primarily, just as a
Yeah.
piece from our end, is that both the senior center and the library, the folks that do the scheduling from both sides, and we have the different requests on each, in the back
Yep.
of it. There's 2 applications that Kathy has worked out for both ends, so they
Yep.
are similar but different based on the needs for each end.
Yep.
Do take priority to town groups, town organizations, clubs, that kind of stuff. But we didn't write it in there, so I do like that suggestion a lot.
That's all,
Yeah.
just to clean it up a little bit. But policies are great.
Okay.
And
But I agree with you about following up with the next
Yeah.
board, 3 boards down from this, that they understand what the
Even if
wording
you
is.
have 5 or 6 different, if after you leave here, you've got, oh, wait a minute.
And not with the current staff over there. One other thing I just thought of, which is one last thing that's famous words here, is I see the current council on aging and the current trustees working great together.
Yes.
But I would like to put in there, down the road, what happens if, who breaks a tie?
makes the-
Right now, people are reasonable, and I hope that they would be in the future.
Right.
But just say that April 15th is the best day in the year. Who breaks the tie?
To me, it would be
Put it
you
right.
folks. Exactly, put it in there, because
I don't want to do it.
we're not really
No.
governing the meeting hall.
That's
because
right.
The meeting
but
hall's
put it
within
in
the
there.
town.
But if we do it right
But
there,
correct, put it in there.
then guess what? Then there's no,
There's no question.
yeah, that's all. And people know the rules, and they go,
Got it.
and they become reasonable. right?
Exactly.
Flip a coin.
Yeah, flip a coin, put it in there, so it's in writing. Thank you, Madam Chairman, Sue,
Then
for
it goes to
that,
the Board
and
of
thank you, people, for all your work that you do unpaid. So thank you for that, all right?
All right, so Sue is diligently reading this thing. Have you
Yeah.
found anything?
Just a couple things on the policy. It looks like you started working on this back in October. That date probably should be updated to when it's being approved.
Okay.
But under conditions for use, item C, users serving food and beverages are responsible for providing food and beverages and for all cleanup. That's fine, but then I look at the request form, and under other requests, it says no kitchen use permitted. So there's no kitchen use permitted at all. Is that what you're saying? Nobody can use the kitchen?
is primarily, or really only used by the senior center and the library events. So like, something like the gingerbread house. They do all the gingerbread pieces and have all the houses made in the kitchen. But it's not necessarily used by another, say a club from the town. It would not be allowed to use the kitchen.
Or if somebody wanted to use it for a baby shower, they couldn't go
Correct.
in there and cook
Actually,
any
if you look
food?
at our form, we actually say no private parties will be authorized.
Right.
We found we just didn't have the personnel to be back and forth and helping them and answering questions and,
Well, I was concerned more about food safety, to tell you the
which is
truth.
why we say no kitchen.
Exactly.
Which we have an obligation, that's a good point.
Okay,
Usually there's catering or people, it's a,
In the past, we had some events that did not have catering, and that's when it got into the whole serve safe issue. So we had different people in both ends of the building take the course. I was one at the time. But then one of us would have to be there to use the kitchen, and which got
right, but right
complicated.
now, if,
But there
with
isn't.
no kitchen use, people are catering, I know, I mean, I haven't been to anything but lately, but, well, when there's senior center or library functions, then the kitchen is being used because they're serving a
And
meal
staff
every
members
lunch.
are
For the
served
senior
safe.
center.
and they have their
And
own
then-
people who
And they
are
have-
certified.
Right,
Yep.
which is
Out of our own
a
budget.
very
Right.
formal, a very formal process. Even the Neshoba Tech kids come over. Sure, they're
Chairman?
using the kitchen.
Oh, great.
Just very quickly, we're not completely unreasonable, like tonight, there's a Relay for Life supper going on. If they work with the director of the library and make sure they're serve safe, oversight, then we will, for special things like that, we will make exceptions to that, but just as a rule of thumb, we say the no party, no kitchen.
The only thing that comes to mind here, and I like your part about no private, but I think you can find a word, a way to word that with Mr. Kryler, so that it gives us some latitude, but when we deny someone, we're on good foot. But like I was just thinking, the police department, the chief here is going to be having the seniors over there. Even though it's a senior, he's sponsoring it. And we had a couple employee retirement parties over there, so we don't want to stop that. And then the other thing is, I would like to see, I don't know if it'll happen before I go, other towns, they have like appreciation breakfast for the employees.
Well, we do make exception for towns.
No,
It's
that's
for
what I'm saying,
towns.
so,
Yeah.
but in the wording,
Put it in the wording.
We should write if there are exceptions, we should
Yeah, the
codify in the
exception should be-
policy what
That's right.
it is going to be, because it shouldn't be left
Do we
discretionary.
need to list
So,
each
if-
exception?
Well, no, but if
Or-
it's going to be, as you just indicated, if there's a request by a private group to use the hall and the kitchen facilities, it's only allowed if it's co-sponsored by a town department with serve-safe qualification. So right now you have
Because
somebody over
ServSafe
that's doing
needs to
that.
be overseeing it.
Yes.
Okay, so you need something in here that is very specific about that, because we don't want to get sued if somebody gets sick.
absolutely, and we don't want people sick with
Right.
both, you know, especially if the
You know?
seniors there.
Yes.
Is that
Well, that's why I
all
like
food
Donna
poison- well,
is
food poison is bad for anybody, but
Yes.
for seniors, it's life-threatening.
I mean,
Yes.
and what I'm thinking is, you know, it's nice to have potluck kinds of things and people bringing things in, but a serve-safe person needs to be overseeing how that is maintained. Is the stuff kept at a good,
Right.
a hot enough
If we
temperature?
don't use the ovens by law, we don't have to have a serve safe. If you're just warming, by law, we don't have to have someone serve safe, if you're just bringing in food. It's only if you're actually cooking in the kitchen.
So, Madam Chairman,
That's-
just if you don't mind, 2 quick points here. One, I have to agree with your points and Sue's points.
Yep.
And the other is, it seems like we're all on the same page and do
Yes,
the right thing
I
here.
agree.
If the Madam Chairman and Sue, I would like to say that as soon as you people work out something with Mr. Crowther,
Mm-hmm.
that I think, knowing how helpful our chairman is, get you right onto the agenda and
Mm-hmm.
it'll be pre-approved and bing bang, and we're in business.
Sounds good?
Yeah, you wouldn't have to, put if we send you away with edits, you don't have to come back and
So work with Jim, come back to us ASAP.
But I do have oh, do you have another question? Okay, you want to go first? No, go ahead.
AV equipment.
Yes,
We're spending a lot of money
yes,
in replacing AV
yes,
equipment.
thank you.
And it's very needed.
Yes,
I have a concern
yes.
about who's going to be using that AV equipment. So my concern about the food extends to the AV
Right,
equipment.
who's qualified?
Because the
who's-
last thing we want is for someone coming in that doesn't know what they're doing to break it on us. Okay?
I agree with that.
I mean, we're spending a,
So just have wording under the supervision of,
so I would like to see some rules around how that's monitored. The other thing is, if, getting back to the food safe and really this too, if they're requiring someone from, say, the library or senior center staff to come in to oversee the AV equipment or oversee the food, then shouldn't they be compensated through this group as well?
That's why we say no.
Yeah, exactly,
it's not worth the hassle.
right.
It's just not worth the hassle.
But you're saying use of AV equipment must be specifically requested here. Technical assistance is not available at all times. Well, that's fine, but if technical assistance is not available, then that means somebody's going to still be using the AV equipment that we just bought.
No, 'cause it's locked. You can't
No,
access it
exactly.
unless
Okay,
unless
so it
somebody
doesn't even
unlocks it.
belong on here then.
Well, they're gonna
Well,
modify that,
if they're
right?
gonna be there while there's somebody available, then it will be available.
Right.
And some of
Okay,
the
so
equipment,
If a
if you
staff
read that,
member
During your
that
hours.
is trained in the equipment
And
is
reading the
available and
checklist.
agrees to do the event.
That's what I was
then-
thinking.
Additional fee for AV.
Pay for the person.
plus some of the things that they have here for boxes, will you be using a laptop? They're bringing their own laptop. And then you have to know what you're doing if you have a Mac, because we're not set up for that. You have to bring your own VGA adapter dongle to connect the Mac to the projector. I'd be in a lot of trouble, because I don't know how to do that, but I haven't, I don't know. But you
That's
need
why
to
it's
help
put
me.
there, so that
You
people
need
know,
to help
if you
me.
want to do this, you better know
Well, how do
what
I
you're
do
doing.
that? What does that look like?
So Jim,
But some of the things are like really, they're safe. They're projector, screen only, the Blu-ray player, and a microphone with audio. Those are kind of basic today. Those are really basic. That hopefully that should not require additional technical support other than,
Correct.
please don't break it, don't steal it, these are somehow hooked up to the
When
building.
it was working, it was
Right.
pretty straightforward.
And it
Yeah.
would be set up
Those are
by a
things
staff
that are
member on
pretty
either end,
basic.
whichever the
A
vendor.
DVD, throw in a DVD, it has to be Blu-ray. Or
No, no.
No, it doesn't,
No.
oh, you can have either, okay. Using a microphone, here's the on-off switch. And screen, here's how you pull it down without ripping it off the wall.
We
It's
could end
electronic.
up reviewing this because we don't know what the new
Yeah.
system that the town
Oh,
voted
right.
in for us.
And I'm
We
hoping,
don't
I
know
mean,
what
my
it's gonna look
personal
like.
thing is that it's gonna be very high-tech.
Well, currently the screens come down, it's a locked
Oh, good, it's
screen,
all on a,
little touch
oh,
screen.
good.
So, and then it gets relocked. So
So you can't break it?
if the AV is ever even used, it's used with staff
Oversight.
Oh, it
oversight.
would be with staff oversight,
and then
okay.
relocked, so
So that's
nobody else can touch it.
Oh, good, good.
So as long as that's specified, if it's during normal business
That
hours.
is actually made clear in the
Yes.
policy.
Right, if it's
Yeah.
only being used during normal business hours and there's
Yeah, because there's no
always
separate
somebody
person
there
for that
could-
building.
that could do it, then that's fine.
Down the
But
road, it would be nice to have somebody.
but if we, for
for that
example,
building.
ever had to pay
We know.
Bossum to go over there and do something, then
Right.
I would expect whatever group was using him to compensate him for those hours. Okay, so that was all I was thinking, was
Okay.
Sure.
there
And
needed
then
to be something.
I have my question's all about money. I'm looking at the Townsend Meeting Hall Gallery fee schedule. I'm confused.
Okay.
which-
I'm on the gallery committee too, so,
Okay, so this is
Cover that too.
separate from renting, using the hall?
correct.
So,
Where are the walls?
okay, just starting
think about it that way.
with, going back to the hall itself, is there
Yes.
any fee for renting the hall?
There used to be, if there were private events, there was a whole fee schedule for the meeting hall, but once the meeting hall committee dissolved and the power then went to you guys,
Right,
completely.
I wasn't here, but I remember that.
I'm the one that closed the committee. I was doing all the work and nobody was coming to the meeting, so I said, okay, let's just close the meeting, or the committee. So, once that happened, the two ends of the building continued doing the scheduling, and everything else was then just, nobody
just
can,
not-
there's nobody there
We're
to
not
do the work,
charging
there's
fee.
nobody there to.
If you follow
there's no
all these
fee,
rules,
there's
then
no-
we're just not gonna charge you,
Right,
but you have to clean up after yourself, and we're already.
And
we're
it's
paying
usually-
somebody-
Why we don't allow parties
Yeah.
or
Right, you're
anything
paying
complex
somebody to
like
clean that building, right? Is there somebody?
there is
You
someone
have
who
a
cleans
clean-
all the town buildings.
Right,
There's-
okay, that,
Yeah.
all right,
There's a
so,
contract.
right, so,
But it's written in their requirements for cleaning up afterwards.
right,
and
okay, and that's working out. So,
Pretty much.
Yeah,
okay.
for the most part.
I'm
I
sure.
mean, like after the seniors' lunches, they clean up and
Oh,
all.
sure.
Yeah, so,
So there's no fee for actually using the hall?
no.
Now, so when I'm looking at this, this is just for artists
Yes,
who want
for the
to
shows.
exhibit their stuff, which is
Correct.
there when we go over there for a different meeting, and we're looking at, oh, isn't that nice? And the stuff that might be in the hallway,
Mm-hmm.
that's what this is, and what's I'm sure it makes sense to you, and it makes sense
That's okay.
to
We're
an artist.
reviewing our
But
part
what
of
is
this
this,
too.
okay, rent is 0 to 20 range / person and then entry fee. What does that mean?
We have different, we can have an individual show or a group show or a committee call for art. So like right now, we have a call for art out for next month, titled Art with Wings. And our artists can apply to join the show with 1 to 3 items at $5 a piece to enter them in the show. That money is put into the meeting hall revolving account, which a portion of that is the galleries. Used to be 2 sections, but now the meeting hall doesn't get any money, so
Oh, okay.
it's now just us. And we have, I think, about $1,500. That's all we have in there. And that is for us if we need any supplies, like our stands were breaking, so we're thinking about buying new stands. We've actually bought bulletin boards for inside because there is, on the outside, it doesn't say gallery at all, it just says meeting hall. So we have 2 bulletin boards now that are lock and key that we can actually post gallery and what's going on and what the shows are coming up, that kind of thing. But
And what's
that's
the-
to offset that. So we generally, that's only if someone applies to actually use the building as an artist show. Sometimes a group does, but sometimes if the group is, say, the middle school, which is doing March, we don't charge them because it's a school. It's a town group. So if it's a town group, we don't charge them. If it's an outside artist, then yes.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. I know that you're anxious to go on to 3.4 because you would love to accept grant money, but if I could just ask one quick thing of these folks here, then we can go on to 3.4, which I know you're anxious to go on to.
You in a hurry?
No, I'm just saying that you like to get money. And that's up next.
I like to get money.
You folks I had made a notice, and I'm not always the sharpest guy, but you made a thing about the upkeep of the building outside. I have to tell you, I just want to ask your opinions. The grounds have never looked better around there, outside that library. And, and I always call it, that's our treasure, a gift from the benefactor.
Yes.
And I think this last year, when people drive in town and out of towns, there's no longer foot dandelions, and so I want to commend.
Yes.
And would you agree that it looks beautiful, doesn't it? You drive.
It does. And
I'm
one
done,
tree
Madam Chair.
died, but
Thank you very much.
All right, so I think, does anyone have any more questions regarding this policy? Other than, we've made
And just to let you know, the gallery committee this winter is going to be reviewing their portion of the meeting
Oh,
hall
okay.
policy, so that will be submitted within the next couple of months.
Oh, okay.
So we to assume this is a draft at this point, and you're going to come back for final?
Yes, because now there's a lot of things we need to change.
Okay, there's a couple edits and,
Yeah.
then meet with Jim and then
Yeah,
Together.
we'll do that.
I've taken notes.
give it back to us and we'll talk about it some more. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Be safe, the snow's starting to accumulate out there, be safe.
We don't have to go far.
Okay.
We can't talk about it.
What? We can't talk about it?
I said we can't talk about it.
We can't talk.
Snowing.
Oh,
It is coming down.
Looked pretty silly going up, though, wouldn't it?
Your car is terrible in the weather. That's why I'm trying to move things along. Because I care about it.
let's see.
3.4, Madam Chair.
Well, I'll get there. Accept grant in the amount of $13,696 from Council on Aging to support related activities and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. Do we have anybody from the senior center?
No.
Okay, so I move that the board accept the grant in the amount of $13,696 for the Council on Aging to support related activities and to authorize the town administrator to sign the contract with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs.
Second.
Is this a regular?
It is. This is our formula grant
This
every
is
year.
just an annual
Yep.
formula grant that we get based on
Well, if they do
population
the
and
work
stuff?
to do it.
Right.
Right, okay. All right, I like that, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
All right.
and
Aye.
thank you
Yes,
for
yes, make sure that,
applying
Get that money.
and doing it.
and this is for this year or next year? Do you know?
This is next year. This should be for 18.
So that's this year, the fiscal year. we're in.
Excuse me, 19.
Okay, thank you.
I told the truth, Madam Chair, when I said that you like 3.4. You like grants.
I do.
Actually, this is 18. This is
So what the year we're in?
termination of June 30th, 18.
Oh, okay. I'm sure she has plenty of bills over there. Okay, 3.5, review, discuss, approve private way snow removal policy.
Madam Chair, this is back before you for your second consideration. Your policy dictates that to accept or amend a policy requires 2 meetings of the board unless there's unanimous vote to do it in one. So this is the second time it's back before you. I haven't had any additional feedback from members of the board on the draft since the last time you had it, with the exception of Selectman Clark. If I misspeak for you, tell me. But Selectman Clark's position on it when we spoke was it's something that's as big a move as this, which it really is, a pretty substantial move when you talk about the number of private ways that we have in town that could all of a sudden become the responsibility of our highway department, that any consideration of something like this would need to be a town meeting vote. Something that the people made the determination instead of just the select board. So I don't know if I got that.
You got very well, as usual, Mr. Crowley. The only thing that we left out was, you're 100% in that, but the other factor is that when these places were built, the planning board, the zoning board, all these people, laws that were enforced at town meeting, those people who bought those houses understood that's what the rules were. So that if we're going, my opinion personal, is we're going to change those rules involving all these bylaws we pass, the people of the town should make that determination.
I agree.
Right? So I think it's
I
the
agree.
people, and let them have that discussion on town meeting floor.
But I do have a question on that. Typically, policies aren't voted on
Yeah,
by
it'd be
the
written-
town. It
it'd
would
be
be a
written as a
bylaw.
bylaw.
As a bylaw? Okay, so planning on putting it on for April?
If it's the wish of the board.
Well,
I think it'd be good because that way we'd end up, we could run it by town council as well to make sure it's tightened up.
my only comments are, I'm not sure, I know when we talked about this last time, we were talking about Jonathan, is it Lane? Lane. I don't know if it was Way or Lane. It's Lane?
Hill.
No. It is a hill.
It is a hill.
But it's Lane or what, is it, Jonathan, it's behind, it's down the
think it's
street.
Lane.
All right, Jonathan Lane, whatever it is. And we were talking about one specific road, and we were talking about, I was concerned about emergency vehicles, and I think everybody's concerned about that, not only up there, but our emergency service people. And I was in favor that time of making an exception for that. But with the caveat that I know I've lived here long enough, and I've heard the previous boards of selectmen go over and over and over this, and even as streets were coming into existence and building lots were being done, and Jonathan Lane has come up many times, is trying to get us to take care of it without it meeting the standards of a road. I'm not necessarily, at this point, necessarily in favor of getting into bylaws, and I don't think, we can certainly discuss that. If we don't want to put it on we don't have to put it on the warrant. We can decide as a policy, we want to just not have this policy.
Correct.
My concerns about expanding this into a huge, because I am concerned, I know that the more I drive around town and learn about what houses we even have, I'm learning about houses I didn't know were there, thanks to Google Maps. It's like, oh, I didn't know there was a house there. I didn't know the street addresses, but
Huge
there's,
decision.
like, you could go half a mile into the woods and, oh, I didn't even know there were houses back there. But there's a lot of shared drives, and which I'm really concerned that it would take nothing but whatever requirements we start spelling out to create a monster. That we just had the highway superintendent here who's talked to us that over the years they've gone from 10 to 5 guys. And then we have another 10 contractors for the winter. And there's even off-season, off-winter issues that might come up if we're going to, this is just snow.
This is
All right, just snow. But I think that the potential for this to turn into a real quagmire is out there. If we start getting into, let's make a warrant article, and I can picture it. If we're going to do a warrant article, I'd want to know, I'd need, just
Staff
for me,
levels, everything else.
I'd want to know exactly how many roads does this apply to, and I'd want to see a budget for it. What would it cost? Because we'd need to budget if we are going to increase the roads that we even potentially.
It's a matter of pure votes, too. You can look at the number of ways that would be allowed, look at the number of registered voters that would serve to be benefited, and if they come to the
That's
meeting,
true.
on a run-of-the-mill annual town meeting, you could have sufficient people that have a personal interest come and vote.
Well, that's for every
that could be
article.
bad for
That's
the-
the whole
But
warrant.
that
That's the whole
buys
warrant.
the monster that you're talking about.
But the monster, even without politics getting into it, but just knowing that we've got a lot of shared drives that could potentially argue, we have enough lawyers running around, that if they even, because this can be pricey. This-
Madam Chairman, can I
it
just
can
say
be
one quick
very
thing?
pricey,
I promise
that
you
this
just
could
one
turn
quick thing.
into- Almost, in
Okay.
a second, but
Thank you.
this, I'm just concerned that, we start to put standards in here, the minimum width, and it's like, okay, if somebody's driveway's 11 feet, well, we can make it 12 easily.
Right.
And still we're qualified.
answer.
We're not wide enough to be a street.
have an answer.
But wide enough, I mean, we could be in a mess, and I'm babbling. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
I have an answer. The answer is, all due respect, I agree with both of you. And here's the deal is, I think the best thing right now is to do nothing.
Okay, me too.
I agree.
Okay, good. So we're gonna do nothing with this policy?
Yes, it's,
Thank you.
Can I just say why I agree? Well, it doesn't happen often that all three of us
we're only
agree.
at 6 inches out there, folks, don't worry about it.
Oh, there is not.
No,
Speaking of that,
this is,
licenses?
this is just snow removal. The next thing will be
Potholes.
or maintenance of the road
Drainage.
or whatever.
The snow
okay?
plow dug up the ground, so now they need to replace the
So
soil.
I would prefer to leave things like this in terms of bylaws to the planning committee, the planning board, and us not even get into having a policy. And as far as I'm concerned, no, you knew it when you moved there. It opens transportation for the school buses as well.
Yep.
Okay, so,
And not to
no.
continue beating a dead horse.
I'm not usually
But there's,
but.
I mean, I know the streets, the Jonathan Lane.
No, hard
Johnson,
line.
Whatever they are.
Okay,
These-
what's
The
next?
people that live there, you're gonna have to take that responsibility and make sure you're
Careful.
providing the sand trucks, the salt trucks, the plow trucks yourself, and that,
Okay.
that
4.1?
emergency vehicles
Done.
can get in there.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Gordy.
Right.
Okay,
Madam
oh, we're
Chair.
gonna move on to town administrator updates and reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving quickly through collective bargaining for North Middlesex School
Not that
District.
bad, relax.
We received a letter from the school district that is calling for a meeting that I gather was just posted for the chairs of each of the three communities to get together and determine who is going to represent the communities for the purpose of collective bargaining. So Chairwoman King would be the one that would be in attendance for that. Cindy and I talked about this today, and if in fact there is to be a Townsend rep to sit at the table, Cindy and I talked about that for consistency being me. I gather that has been historically the case as well, so I don't know if it's something that would require a vote of the board, or if it's something that the chair would just delegate, designate, or how you want to handle it, but that's...
Why don't we just vote on it and make it official?
Yeah, and I think, we talked about, my interpretation of it was that it's not, doesn't mean each town has representation, was I correct about that? Did you look into that?
No, I
I
think
agree.
that all towns have a right to representation.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it from prior school
Okay.
districts that I've been
All
involved
right,
with.
okay, I thought, the way I was reading it, of course, I
Yeah.
could have been over-reading into it, that this meeting is going to determine which town is the representative, but...
Well, I guess the motion would be, to the extent that there's going to be a local Townsend rep for collective bargaining for North Middlesex, that it would be the position of town administrator.
Right, and I think that that's what the law is anyway.
So moved.
Okay. Second, over here?
Second, with a brief discussion, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
And the brief discussion will be very brief, is I have to agree with the rest of the board that Mr. Crowley be the, but the reason I need to say that is that I've spent the last year and a half, 300 or 400 hours at this table here negotiating with Mr. Crowley, and he has more knowledge than the lawyers that the unions pay and we pay, and especially about, well, it's the truth, I've been there. And the biggest quagmire for all towns and businesses in this country right now is healthcare. It's like a specialty expertise, how to structure this to work with the employees. And I saw that firsthand. He has the knowledge, so I think he will represent us, the employees, and the taxpayers. That's all, so I'm ready to say yes.
All those in favor?
Thank you for that, Madam
Okay.
Chairman.
I just gonna need to, because I have to babble on. I have to keep us here until there's 6 inches of snow on the ground.
We're 5.5, Madam Chairman.
No. You know,
Well, one of us is going to leave.
you know, we're in budget season, we're in, I mean, this is not an annual event for them, but we're in budget season, and just to talk about how important this really is that the school district, with our budget, in every town, I think in Massachusetts, but certainly North Middlesex, the school budget is more than 50% of our town's budget.
more than 50% of our taxes goes to the school.
All revenue, not just tax.
All of it. Yes, all revenue. Our budget, and in fact, every year, a bigger percentage of our total budget is going to the schools. And it's not going anywhere. But there's a reason for that. It's not necessarily a bad reason. But the schools is our largest employer. If you're going to take all the departments of all of our towns, most of the employees, which personnel is the number one expense in a department budget, but the schools employ more people than any other. If you took all of our departments and added them all up in all three towns, the schools have more than all of us combined. So collective bargaining with the employees over there is exceptionally important. So I just want to make sure that with all the conversations that we're having, we do take that very seriously. And hopefully, I mean, the schools are important, the teachers are very important. We want them to be adequately compensated and our kids getting their education, but collective bargaining is extremely important over there. And I'll stop now.
Wonderful. Next, we have public authority towing. At the last meeting, we had a good bit of discussion around public authority towing. The discussion was that because at that point we had just one company that had submitted a proposal, and it was my understanding at that time, as I spoke before you, that that one company was not interested in working both weeks, but instead only working every other, as that company had historically. We were going to go back out on the street to solicit for another, or second, or perhaps even second and third contractor. I was advised the next day that I was mistaken, that the company was interested in working or was willing to work both weeks pending resolution of this matter. So we did not go back out to bid because we had that crisis resolved. I did trade phone messages with the principal of the company that submitted the only bid that we've had over the last week. 2 times today I'd left messages on the gentleman's cell phone. Have not spoken to him. I don't know for how long he would be interested in continuing or how long he's able to continue working both weeks. So I think we do need to finalize things. So tomorrow there'll be a 30-day solicitation put back out on the street. I know that the chief has worked with a direct solicitation with another company that is, I'll choose my words carefully, is certified by DPU to do public authority or involuntary police towing. If we find out that the current contractor that is at least temporarily doing both weeks is no longer interested in doing both weeks, we do have somebody that meets the qualifications specific to having the type of storage and the type of availability, including having the ability to be responding to Townsend within that 20-minute window, that would be willing to step in if necessary. So, any questions?
Yeah,
I'm confused now.
me too a little bit, okay? I just want to make sure.
Sure.
So, our current vendor, if you will, has said they will do both weeks.
That is
Okay.
my understanding from the
Okay.
chief having had discussions with the vendor.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm understanding that right. Is that for a time period, or are you looking to have a discussion with that same vendor to say, do you want to do it forever that way?
My understanding it's for a time period.
Okay.
And consistent with the way the town has handled it, at least 20 years that I can see back in the files, having at least 2, in some cases there had been 3 at one point, vendors on a rotation.
Alternating.
So, right, so the objective would be consistent with the request for proposals that went out to have a minimum of 2 that would rotate.
Okay, good.
Today, we don't have 2, we have 1 that is choosing to do it. If he says, I'm only going back to 1, we have another company that would be able to step in the interim, that is certified, to take that extra week. At the end of 30 days, presumably that company, and perhaps others, will have put proposals in for consideration of being either the second or third to be acknowledged. The other piece that I want to just make clear is, this isn't talking about entering into a contract with a private tow company. There's been some discussion on the street about this being a contract. There is no economic relationship between the town and this vendor. The police department is authorized under the law to have a designated company perform this function. Some police departments that are very big do it themselves, but we're obviously not there, so we're allowed to designate a company. Because we are making that designation, we need to make certain that everything is square, that Cory checks and the like are in order. But the economics are between that car owner, that insurance company, and the private vendor. We have no relationship there at all. So we're not contracting with anybody. We're merely appointing, if you will, for lack of a better descriptor, appointing somebody to be that public authority towing representative for us.
So we may be all set for at least the time being.
We will be all set for the time being.
We'll be covered.
Right. It'll either be the gentleman doing both, it'll be the gentleman choosing to go back to just one, and the chief's most recent contact taking the second. The gentleman may say, you know what, I don't want to do either of them anymore. At which point, we'll go back to the one that the chief just picked up for the time being while we have this next 30-day window. Okay. Before I leave public authority towing, there has been a tempest, probably in more than a teapot, over the last couple of weeks on the issue of public authority towing. That, I remember when I interviewed for this job, I talked about the fact that I have scars on my back from doing this job, because it's not uncommon to get whipped a bit. And for a number of weeks after your last meeting, I was taking a pretty good whipping online. And when the dust settles, there were certain allegations that were being put forth online by citizens in the community that were alleging improper actions. There was allegations of collusion with a vendor, that the chief and I were somehow business partners with one of the vendors, that we knowingly were talking about bringing a vendor in without them being certified by the Department of Public Utilities. It escalated to the point that private citizens in town were reaching out to the licensing authority, the Department of Public Utilities, and interacting with them in terms of email communication and public records requests. At the end of the day, I'm well pleased by the fact that what I have said publicly on this matter, both electronically online and to you in your meeting, regarding the chronology of events and the information that was available at the time of those communications, has been borne out to be true and accurate and demonstrably provable by the documents. What concerns me about that is getting between the allegation and the truth. There was a document in particular that was sought by a resident in town, received from an agent of the Commonwealth electronically, and at someone's hand, either by deliberate act or mistakenly, it was altered. And it wasn't altered such that it made no sense. It was altered in a way that made it say what that person's argument was, which was basically closing the door on the chief and my statements being able to be true. Fast forward the tape, you have a copy of that altered document and two copies now, one live electronic copy from the Commonwealth agent and another public records request from chief counsel from the DPU. And it's clear that that in fact was altered, and it looks to be, at least to my eyes, to have been altered for a purpose. It's troubling. There's enough nonsense that goes on legitimately where we can disagree and disagree vigorously without it going to this. And I'm concerned because it's difficult in the day of social media. Is it the old Twain quote about, the lie is halfway around the earth before the truth gets to put its pants on? I'll never unring the bell on those posts. They exist and they will exist forever. That I lied to you, that I lied to the taxpayers, that I'm in some sort of collusion with a vendor. I'll never get those things unwrung. It's got to stop. You know, people can disagree with things that I say, positions I take, and I welcome them to. But we need to be honest players in that dispute or disagreement or debate. And I fear that we've, at least in this case, if not in others, where I have suspicions, gone off those rails.
Madam Chairman?
I'd like to say one thing about this, that the individual that altered the document or posted the altered document has, over the course of a few years, caused a lot of disruption in this town, which is ongoing and is going to be ongoing for the foreseeable future. Hopefully that the exposure of this individual will bring, hopefully, citizens in the town will see him for who he is, that this is the first time that he's actually put a document out there and got caught, to where it's clearly deliberate, to me, it's a deliberate act of changing a document and presenting it to prove a point that's not true. Where for the last few years we've had all kinds of things said publicly in this room, on videotapes, on allegations and statements and alleging that conversations occurred, but lies, lie after lie after lie after lie after lie for over 2 years that I've been on the board, over 2 years, for more than 2 years. And I think it has to come to an end, and I'm hoping that the citizens of this town will see that the actual instigator of the beginning instigator, and even those big time people involved with everything that's happened in this town, I have to call them victims of this individual, because they've fallen for half of the crap that's going on, and excuse my language. But it's just one lie after another, and now we've got proof that's happened. I can't prove past lies, but most of what's been going on has been very untruthful and causing a lot of problems in this town, and it's really getting old. But enough on that. We can't be running this town on Facebook. We need to be running it through normal government channels. And if people want to get involved with the town, I encourage it. And please, come to meetings, be civil, and join some of the other boards. We have boards that have vacancies, and everybody's welcome to participate in the government in a legitimate manner, and even to be involved with some of the things that are debated. They're very worthy of debate. But I've done, I've talked to Jim, I've talked to the police chief, tried to, figure out, what is the status of this public towing thing anyway? How did this even get started? And I know I've lived here for over 35 years, and I know the towing thing, it has reared its head as a conflict between companies over the years, especially when, as I recall, when we went to 3 companies, there were some debates between the 2 companies. Didn't want a third party, as I recall. I could be wrong on that, but it was an interesting time. But coming up on this, I didn't know anything about how the requirements existed, and I think when Jim came on, this is one of the items that he's looked at, and clearly either police chiefs didn't know, previous town administrators didn't know, and boards of selectmen certainly didn't know. But we've gone over 20 years with the other company. I'll name it. Shepherd's has been doing public authority towing for years, and nothing. I mean, absolutely not an ill word towards them, but I don't think they or anybody else knew that they were supposed to do this. Nobody cared. Whoever, if you were a towing company in Townsend and you wanted to get in the rotation, basically all you had to do was ask, and it was a business discussion. It wasn't applying and getting licenses. Nobody knew anything about it. Apparently, Harbor Auto Body knew about it, and I don't know how long he's had a certification. It's not even relevant. But that we just realized a few months back that this is a requirement that we should have these bases covered. Jim initiated the process. The term contract, it kind of sounds scary, like we're going to contract with the town and because of all the politics going on, the impression, I can understand it, where somebody might think that we're trying to get rid of the other company that's been doing it, which is not there at all. We just needed to be completely above board on, and have the paperwork straight, make sure people have their licenses, and almost like any other business in town, but this is doing business with the town, or on behalf of the town, not with the town, because there's no financial contact there. And I'm hoping we can get this completely resolved, hopefully soon. Right now, if we can, my understanding from what, Jim, you said was, so Joe, Harbor Water Body is going to be doing it 24/7 for now?
That's as it's been since your last meeting.
Right.
I don't know if that'll continue to be the case, but we have backup if he chooses to do it differently.
Oh, okay.
Between
So
now and the 30-day window.
That third company, I'll call it
Correct.
the third company because the...
Correct.
So, and we're going to continue to have an open solicitation to get at least one other company to get
Correct.
on the rotation within the next couple of months.
1 month. 30-day window.
The goal is
Yep.
1 month. I mean, personally, and we're definitely going to have a second company? Is that an absolute?
Well,
At some
That's
point.
not what I heard you say
it's,
before.
that's, as it's been, that's what the RFP
We've got
says.
that, okay.
And obviously, if there aren't 2 companies that are interested or willing, then no, we won't. We can't
Oh.
create one.
Right.
If there are more than 2, then that's open for consideration as well. But at a minimum, it'll be the objective, the goal, to have the same that we had, which is 2. And to tie into one of your points about some of the palace intrigue, about, again, that this is somehow an effort at going after one of the vendors. My very first comments on this at your meeting on television, I was express and clear in saying the objective here is to have nothing change on the street, have the same 2 vendors, but just have good files, clear files that have the appropriate protections for the town, but not to change the vendors at all. And God willing, that it'd still be the case, except now one has chosen,
Shepherd's
to not.
Yeah.
But I just want to touch that as well, because some people have said that this is, there's an ulterior motive to this.
And I'm just thinking, that I hope we get this settled, the dust settles pretty soon. But I'm just thinking protection of the town, that, anything can happen to Joe's, something can happen, or we can have such a catastrophe in town that I'm just nervous about if we were going to end up with just one company. I don't care who it is. I'm really, whoever it is. Because anything can happen to a company, somebody can get sick,
Right.
vehicles can, something can happen to a vehicle, there can be something legal, there can be something, or a disaster large enough that we need multiple people that are certified by us to do these things. So, I would like to, my personal thinking is that I don't want us to be without a second one,
Right.
even if we have to wait, even if there's nobody out there that shows themselves as wanting to do it, that we keep the solicitation open until such time as we have a second one. So we've been doing at least 2 for the time I've lived here.
I think that's fair.
I don't know that we've ever had one since I've lived here, but that we always have a plan to have that second company from somewhere, at least 2. If a third one shows up, I'm happy to have that conversation, but the more people that are certified, the better.
Gotcha.
It sounds like you're working things out in terms of the towing, and that's a good thing. I want to just comment on, I'm assuming by internet discussion, you're referring to Facebook. Maybe it's tweeting too, who knows? But,
I hope not.
No, different level of government.
well, yeah, but not really, okay? I see parallels, thank you.
Please don't get her going on this.
Yeah, don't get me going. At some point, I would like us to look at our social media usage, okay? And it's going to be an interesting discussion, but when we're talking about employees during employee time,
Oh, that's...
talking about town business, I would like to limit severely the use of social media. It is not the place that these discussions should be happening. It is simply not the place. And the best way to avoid it is to just not do it at all. Now, I'm not going to tell people not to use Facebook, but on the other hand, I haven't missed it at all. I use Facebook for very close friends, and even some good friends I've unfriended, which is a terrible term. You know, I have not unfriended them at all. I simply don't talk to them on Facebook anymore, because I don't want that to influence decisions about the town. We are and need to be above that fray. If people want to write an intelligent letter voicing their concerns, price of a stamp is still only 50 cents or what is it, 49, okay? That's fine. They can come in, they can hand you something, they can call and ask for a meeting, okay? I don't like running the town on Facebook. And we've got to put a stop to it. And if nobody out there is going to do it, then it starts right here.
The difficulty I see, Sue, and I agree, I wish it didn't exist, because I think that it gives people a platform that could be so purposeful and beneficial, but oftentimes is not. It's malignant.
So I can't control what other people do, but as a select board, we can control what our employees do with town information and town discussions during work time.
I haven't seen that being a
and-
problem. Have you seen that?
I've not seen that as a problem. I know that there are
Well,
suggestions.
information certainly.
Information, absolutely.
Okay.
During town time, I'm not certain.
I'm not either, but just the same. As a select person, I would not want to talk about town business in that kind of a forum. I'm very careful to hold conversations for here.
Sure.
You know, and I think we all need to be, and especially, you know, I would urge you, Jim, to just get off of all of them.
I would love to, but I won't. And I got to tell you, Sue, that the danger is that even locally in a town, relatively small town, the size of Townsend, there's a Facebook page that has 5,000 plus registered members. Now that doesn't mean 5,000 people every day, 3 times a day are looking at it, but potentially a message gets in front of 5,000 people. I don't know if you remember the old Herbal Essence shampoo commercials, and so on, and so on, and so on, and it just keeps expanding. That type of exposure can be very positive and beneficial, but that's not what it's being used for. So the reason that I very rarely engage in responding, but this last couple of weeks is a great example, because somebody looking at threads on public authority towing in the last 2 weeks would draw some pretty ugly conclusions about this local government. But for the fact that I know what was said to me, by whom and when, and the chief knows, it's difficult to prove that a conversation occurred unless you get an email or writing confirming. You know, so now we're chasing a state official and say, can you please confirm that you said this to me on this date and time? It gets really crazy, but it's being used as a tool for a very specific purpose to do damage. And it does damage.
And do not engage in it.
I'm going to inject right here, because on that particular situation, it's a good thing that the 2 employees, Jim and Carolyn being the 2 employees that did engage in that thread, if they had not, the only information that would have been out in the public would be that Jim is in collusion with the police chief, with this other company, that he lied to everybody, both on phone, in meetings, about the dates and times that they got this other company. All that stuff would have been presented as fact with no rebuttal, and the fake email that Steve put on there with the changing of the wording would have been placed on Facebook and taken, and with no rebuttal from the town whatsoever, because it would have been just a Facebook thing. It wouldn't have made it into this meeting. And if Jim and Carolyn had not entered into that conversation and presented the actual documentation, then that would have been horrible for this town. And we'd be sitting here, maybe with 100 people in here again,
But that would
dealing
be-
with us, with the freak
I
show
would
that we
much
had a couple
rather
of years ago.
sit with 100 people in front of me and talk to them.
Oh, right, with documentation, never mind. All right, let's end this discussion right now. I'm just
Madam
gonna
Chairman?
I'm going to end this discussion. We're going to
Madam
move.
Chairman?
No, I'm not going to.
Yes, Madam
I am
Chairman.
not going to continue this conversation.
All right.
We're done with
I asked-
Facebook.
No, I'm not.
Done with Facebook.
I asked to be recognized
All right.
15 minutes ago by you, all due respect, and I sat here and I listened to
Okay.
both you and Sue diligently. And my thing I asked for it to be recognized for had nothing to do with that, but I do
Okay.
have two things from the quick, I promise you, from your conversation, and I think it's unfair for me not to
Go ahead.
have a chance,
Yep.
all due respect. I know it's a difficult job you have, but I listened to both of you, and I happen to think both you and Sue had points. I'll get to the point that I asked 15 minutes before, but I'm glad that you two had that, but I had to keep track of what I'm, in my simple mind, what I want to talk. But the first thing here is the thing about the gym should stay off social media. I'm not going to get into it. All I will say is that a human being, do I have permission to say about what they've said about your medical things in the past? I'm asking. I
Absolutely.
don't
Go for
violate
it.
HIPAA.
Go for it.
When a person is said that has stage 4 cancer, that you do not have cancer on things, and his family has to see that and cry and in tears, he has a right to respond. When a person goes fighting for his life to a hospital, think about your families, is in surgery, and people are stalking, reporting about his medical procedures, he has a right to respond, all right? I won't get into that. When people put on social media, me, who have had 6 friends lose their lives due to violence, police officers in the line of duty, my partner was shot 6 times, but he survived, ended up committing suicide, that my family saw a person invited to this town by certain people on social media asked me to commit suicide. These are facts, and I would testify to it. I'm done talking about this. So when these atrocities happen to any human being, whether he's a town administrator or a selectman or a person sitting out there, they have a right to defend themselves. I'm done talking about that. Thank you, Madam Chairman. But I had to stay. There's some decencies in the world you got. And then the other thing about Sue, that we can't get into it, but you're both a little inaccurate about that, and we cannot talk about it. It's been executive, but you both know of a case where an employee did use a town phone for social media during duty, right? So that's not an accurate statement. We cannot say another word.
Nope.
But that's correct, right? We're correct on that. Now, if with all due respect here, I'm looking for your guidance, Madam Chairman, going back to my original thing I had 15 minutes ago.
What?
All right. Well, no, I'm trying to be...
I'm sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
What was it?
So, again, I know it's a difficult job, but, all right. I have, that I was going to do my updates, but I didn't expect this to come up. I have a motion that I was going to bring up my updates about, not about the towing thing, about the actions of questioning Mr. Kryler's creating false documents. I was going to do my updates, but it may be appropriate for me to say it now. I'll do whatever you want. In my updates, I'll say it now. I'll let Jim finish and I'll do it after, or I can do it now quick.
Well, since Jim is still in the middle of his updates, I'm
That's
just going
fine.
to
That's
ask
why I'm
Jim what his pleasure would be.
Well, if it's relevant to what we just talked about, just do it now.
Okay, again, I'm trying to thread the line here to be respectful and also follow the correct order. So here's the deal, as everyone's known in the past, that I've publicly stated about that I thought there was intimidation of witnesses. So I'm going to make the following motion. Well, I'll have one question before this, then I'll make the motion. Mr. Kryler, to the best of your knowledge, I know you're not a lawyer, but to the best of your knowledge and ability, do you believe that it's possible a crime was committed when public documents were altered and posted?
My limited understanding of
Yes.
it, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not looking to get a legal opinion, it's just that, okay. So I would make a motion, and you don't want a second, it's not, but I'm going to ask, I've already signed it and dated it, put my title here, I'm going to give it to, hopefully it passes. If it doesn't, I'm still going to make it part of the official record. I move that the board refer to the most refer the most recent actions of Mr. Sheldon related to the alleged, and I've initialed that, altering of an official public record of an agent of the Commonwealth to our insurance counsel in the federal civil rights case currently pending as an example of what, in my opinion, are his ongoing actions to intimidate a witness in that case. I've signed Gordon and Clark. If you want to second that vote, that's fine. If not, I am going to make sure, because I expect fully to be testified in federal court in this. Here's my motion, if you'd like to look at it. If you want
I
to.
don't understand what it means.
What it means is that in the past here, I've witnessed and reported here actions that I thought were intimidation of people who were going to be testifying in federal court. And I asked that Judge Wolf and the Department of Justice be notified. I believe that this recent action of altering this is an ongoing, in my opinion. I think experts in our insurance counsel, which is being paid, all right, be notified of these things.
I can't second it, I don't
That's fine.
understand it.
I understand it. Well, I would have to second it and move it, but,
One last thing that I took the liberty of, Madam Chairman, with your faith here, is I looked at our oaths. I took my oath on 4/28/2015. Cindy, you took your honorable oath on 4/26/2016. And Sue, you took your honorable oath on 4/27/2016.
took mine in November of 2015.
But that's what I have here, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, during that, it says that I agreed to basically uphold the rules and regulations, the constitutional laws of this Commonwealth. Everyone's is entitled to due process. I'm not saying it hasn't, but it needs to be referred to the expert counsels who are defending us in federal court. They'll determine, not me.
All right, all you're asking here is that this situation be presented to our insurance counsel.
Right, representing us in federal court, that's all I'm asking.
Not, this is not acute, we're not taking any action.
I'm not-
This is just to give it.
And the word allege is there, and that's why I've
Oh,
signed.
right, yeah. My only thinking.
It has to stop.
We had a, oh, you can't say that.
No?
You can't say that. I can't say that.
So all we're doing is referring this to our counsel who represents us in federal court, and he'll take the appropriate action, because he's due by rules of court if he has to notify the
All right,
people. Yes.
all right, I'm going to second this, but I'm going to explain to everybody why. I'm not anticipating anything out of this. This is simply giving it to that attorney to, and they're an attorney, they're going to decide themselves on how they present the case.
Or their obligations to report it.
Well, it's part of their,
Their job.
they're going to, I mean, it's part of, well, the lawyer's going to do what the lawyer knows his job to be. This is not saying that we're not voting, this vote, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, we're not voting that we agree, that we've determined that a crime has actually been committed and that we're pressing charges against anybody.
Nothing
You
nothing
know,
like that.
We're
Nothing
only
to be filed for the
referring,
truth.
hey, all this stuff is happening, we just would like our attorney, which anybody would do.
To know.
Hey, is this something that has anything, is there anything here, because this wasn't very nice and we're hurt by it, and we would just like you to look at this and see
We're
if
also
there's anything
protecting the
else.
town from further liability by taking, inaction is
Well, okay,
liability.
that might, there may or may not be, I don't know.
Inaction
But
is
does that
liability.
make sense?
Yeah, it
Okay,
does.
all right, so I'm seconding it just to, it's only asking that we're sending it off to that attorney. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just think that a motion shouldn't have somebody's opinion in it.
It's not an opinion.
Yes, it is. It says, in my opinion, are his ongoing actions to
Which I've
intimidate witnesses
Which I'm not
in that
into, which
case.
I've publicly stated in the past here, actions that have happened out there in the foyer and in
Okay,
here.
all right. Only because I don't see any reason why not. That I don't see there's any ill action by doing it or not doing it. I think this is just a request by Mr. Clark to have this go over, and if I'm gonna talk about my opinion, I think that Mr. Clark could send this over to the lawyer without our vote. He could call that lawyer himself, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know what lawyer you're talking
The
about.
one representing
The
some
one
federal
representing.
civil rights violations, alleged.
Oh, okay. So you're connecting the civil rights case,
I'm not connecting anything, Mr. Lizio.
you're assuming,
I'm not assuming anything. My motion
He
speaks it
just
all.
wants to give it to that.
Thank you.
whatever.
And only to move it, mostly to move this along without any ill,
Nothing except for the
there's
state.
nothing negative by us voting, nothing, I'm just trying to move this along. So I'm seconding it for that purpose. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay.
Sure. With your permission, Madam Chairman, I'll give this to Mr. Pryler.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Do you want me not to give it to you? I'll take it.
No, I got it.
All right.
All right, so,
Fiscal 19 budget update. This evening, I'll be emailing a copy, once the meeting is finished, of what was being worked on until a couple minutes before I came in at your meeting, which is the fiscal 19 budget as it currently stands. I'm going to be emailing it as a live Excel document. Sue and I talked about this over coffee last week, just giving her the ability to add columns and do any data analysis she wants to do. Cindy and I have talked about the same thing. So I don't know. I don't know what interest or action Gordy will give to it, but
What's that? I'm sorry.
it's a spreadsheet with the budget.
I'm all set at this point. We had a brief conversation earlier.
So that'll be coming out to you tonight. At your last meeting, again, just for the sake of clarity, I talked about the fact that the prospective budget that's being worked on for 19 was at that time roughly $500,000 out of balance. That somehow got translated again on the street as the budget's out of balance. Our current budget, we're out of balance. What happened to the $500,000? Here we go down that rabbit hole again about all the ill things that are occurring in the town hall. For people that have not participated, either often or regularly, if at all, it is projected when you start this process that you are out of balance. In fact, we paid through the Collins Center to have consultants come in and build a model for us that shows, for anybody that wants to go back and look at the video, it's online, or request a copy of the document, that for the next 5 years rolling, we are out of balance every year until we get to that budget process and we come into balance. So there are things that need to be done in order to come into balance. But based on those projections, we are out. Having said that, we're now sitting at around 320 out of balance, projected for fiscal 19. Our current, about 320.
Okay.
Our current fiscal 18 budget, we are in good shape. We are on the averages year to date, we are below where we would be if you went straight on percentages. That's even given the fact that we front load a lot of expenses, like we prepay our retirement, which is $600,000. We prepay for materials and highway department. So we're in very good shape. So any alarms that went up after the last meeting regarding fiscal 18 being out of balance should be quelled. That's not the case. We're in good shape.
we're just tweaking, we're still tweaking the numbers for next year's budget.
Correct, and we don't have
That's
all-
why we're having these meetings with the department heads and.
And we don't have all of the inputs yet. I expect that this Friday we'll get the governor's presentation of House 1, his projected local aid numbers for next year. So we don't yet even have that, which is roughly $1.3 million, give or take, of a revenue in our budget. So we don't know what that number is. We have an estimate, a plug in there, but there are so many variables that are yet unknown. The school numbers, as Cindy said earlier, they account for close to 55% of our total revenue that we put out the door. We don't have those two numbers yet from the two regional school districts. So everything is, as it always is, and as it's designed to be, still in play.
What do we have so far? When I asked for an update, and was misunderstood. I didn't really want to talk about it myself, but more with you and us. I understand the timeline in terms of the policy, but what I'd like to see is, all right, here's a milestone.
Right.
Are we on target for that?
We are.
Okay?
Yep.
And like, for example, I know I have some budgets that have been submitted, but I don't have them all.
Correct.
How much time do the others have?
Yeah. Right.
You know, that kind of thing. When is everything due? Is everything that's due done? You know, so, and I'm not looking for a Microsoft project kind of thing.
Right.
Simple milestones and saying, are we on target or not, or what's our projected completion date?
Right. To go backwards a little bit, the policy, a copy of which Carolyn did provide, it's in your packets, and the votes that were taken earlier in this budget cycle. March 1st, I have to have a draft budget balanced to you. Between now and March 1st, it's a free-for-all. It really is.
Fourth, I understand, but
Now, in terms of what you're getting this evening electronically, there's at least one major department that has been granted grace in submitting their budget. It's the police department budget. I expect that I'll have it imminently, but we have 2 new people at the top in leadership positions there that I think appropriately wanted to do a zero base on it. They wanted to look at everything from the bottom up.
that's fine.
So my expectation is that it's going to look markedly different, but they wanted the time to do it right, and I didn't think it appropriate to try to fast track that, given the importance of it because of its size.
So do we have everybody else's budget?
Everything else is in. We don't yet have our insurances. You may recall we'll probably not see those numbers for another month or so.
But you could at least do estimates
We
there.
do have estimates built into that. There are a couple of questions on Board of Health budget that I was working with Carla on today that I expect clarification after their next meeting. But I think when you see it tonight, they'll be highlighted in a fashion that everything that is highlighted, and there'll be a key to show you that. So very little is still outstanding.
And is that something, my main thing was making sure that the public knew how to look at this information in advance, you know, instead of waiting for a week or so before the town meeting.
Right.
You know, what are the opportunities that the public has to, I mean, one of them is to listen to our meeting as we talk to the different department heads. You know, Kathy went through for hers what she thought her increases were and why. And, you know, it's not a lot, but that's one way. Another way is to go to the finance committee meetings. But when I looked online, I didn't see them on the calendar.
Right.
So, okay, good.
To your point, Sue, I think...
Capital planning has started meeting as well.
Correct. On the operating budget side, I think I would be hesitant to put the document you're going to see this evening, which is a public document. Once I've presented it to you, it's a public document. So technically, it's available if somebody wants to ask for it. My concern is that because it's not yet fully baked, it's just going to put information out on the street that we're then going to be trying to talk off of when we get the next best set of numbers. So what I anticipate doing this year that's different from last year to accomplish things I've heard you say and things I heard at town meeting, in addition to the department heads coming in before the board on television, people can watch it again on YouTube, in addition to the finance committee meeting, in addition to the public hearing where I present the budget out to you in detail, I'm going to sit at the table here with the camera and go through a detailed tab-by-tab presentation, which I haven't seen happen at town meeting. And when I've looked back over the years at town meeting budget presentations, some towns spend an awful lot more time going through everything from the revenue projections to the expenditure projections and then the actual budget. My plan this year is to actually do that work in advance, record it, and have it available online. So people can look at that at their leisure. Any questions that are generated, they can either approach you as members of the board to get to me, or to me directly. And then beyond that, once the budget is finalized, to make the detailed line item budget much more available. So March 1st, it comes across the table to you. Once it's been voted by you and it's real, over the last couple of years, that budget has then been put aside, and the consolidated omnibus version is what gets talked about from that point forward. Doesn't mean that wasn't available for people to look at, but we didn't make it as readily available as I think we can. So
I agree.
this year it'll be a little bit more front and center.
Question, Finance Committee going to get copies of the worksheet that you referred to?
I want to wait another couple days until I have a couple of more things done, until I see the police budget and I'm able to input that data, until I've hopefully had a chance with Carla to fine tune a couple of things. The fire chief and I tomorrow were talking about the way he's accounting for a couple of things in his budget that look a little different this year. So before I put it on the street, I'd like to get at least one more iteration done before I get it off to the Finance Committee.
I do have a question.
They do have a copy of the same binder you have of the budget submitted to date, though,
I do
already.
have a question on this. I noticed that there were new categories or different categories.
The back page of everybody's
Yeah.
submittal, those come from the Collins Center. Those are the recommended best practices for the GFOA.
So I'm assuming those are account numbers or accounts that we had that we're trying to migrate to a different name?
We're trying to migrate towards that back list.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes year-to-year comparisons a little
difficult.
bit of a challenge.
It does, which is why I didn't do it last year. In fact, I'm not going to try to migrate this year either. I think we have fed the town a lot of change over the last 2 years. And I think if we change that additional
Yeah.
next step right now, it's a little too much. I think we still need to earn some more faith. And if there's the belief that there's a sleight of hand or some fast and easy stuff going on with the budget, and we change line item names on top of that,
Yeah.
it just makes it look even more curious. So I think if we keep it consistent with the way they've always been labeled and try to just be more transparent this year, I hate that word. I really have come to hate that. I love what it means, I just hate it. If we try to be a little bit more transparent, the way we've just discussed, having the recording of the detailed presentation of each tab of the budget workbook, having the line item budget available earlier and more often, I think we can make up some of that ground that we might have lost.
It's good. It sounds like you've kind of done a little mini postmortem, which is what I've been talking about too. So that's nice. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Next, the contract between us contemplates the evaluation of the town administrator to be done by December 31st, so we're a couple of weeks late on that. So in your packets, there's a copy of the form. Last year at this time, we talked about changing the form because it's really not a great form when you look at it. So if you've not looked at it yet in some time,
Glanced at
yeah,
it.
you might look at it and have some thoughts on it as well. I'd be happy to entertain a revised form if you think. What I'd be mindful of, to be completely honest, however, is we'd be changing a form that I have been working under for a year with the understanding that this is against which I'll be, things against which I'll be evaluated. And I would not want to see a new form get created that puts things entirely outside of what I was expecting.
So
I would like you to come up with a form, though.
They exist. There's some best practices one on the MMA website that we can.
As we're doing, because I know we talked about this last
Yeah.
time, and I don't see, I mean, we've been busy. It's been a busy year, and I know that you've had other things going on. That, I think we talked about you changing the form and getting back to us and tweaking it so that we have a better form.
I remembered it the other way, but I'm probably wrong. I remembered it being
okay.
that you guys are going to do that because it's really your tool to evaluate me.
It is, but you've been doing this job
Sure.
a lot longer than we have. And you know, I would like you to give us what you think we're certainly going to tweak it and discuss it beyond belief.
I'll get you, between now and your next meeting,
Come up
the
with-
best, I'm sorry?
What would be the timeline for this?
I can get whether, well, if you decide to stay with this for this year, then the timeline is between now and a time that you feel is reasonable, but, you know, recognizing it should have been done a month ago. Just get together
Yeah, my
with me.
implication is not that I want you to do a form that we're going to rate you on now.
Okay.
I'm thinking,
Okay.
since just what you said, but I would like you to come up with this form, or give us a draft of what you think the evaluation should look like, that you think that this is what a town administrator should be doing, this is what I would like to be rated on, these are the things, consistently, and even if you were to move on and somebody else were to replace you,
Yeah, I think-
this is what a town administrator in Townsend, this would really measure what the town administrator's doing and what they really ought to be doing and rated on, and then we'll talk about it.
Those exist, and I can get them readily off the MMA under the best practices tab.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can definitely do that.
Madam Chair, I think what's important to go into the evaluation process is what are the goals and objectives that the selectmen have given to an employee? Were there a list of goals and objectives that you were given?
Which, no, the answer is no, which brings my focus back to this document. This document does not even reflect,
That's my point. I
Goals.
looked at it and I said, ooh.
That's the
mean-
one that's been used for years.
Well, I understand,
what's
but-
interesting though is this, presume that there is a section on goals, you would still want the guts of this other stuff anyway, because it
But you
it-
want
it
them
talks about-
integrated.
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to
Okay.
see that there's been all of this good
Because they should be
behavior that has
specific.
generated this deliverable.
They should be specific to the goals that you were given, and those goals should be a reflection of the goals of the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think there's some basics of management and goal setting that maybe need a little bit of work. I can't commit to it right away,
I know.
but I might, I would be willing to sit and help Jim on doing some of that, because I do have some background with management stuff like that.
So if I understood correctly though, we're going to go with this
We're
one
gonna go
for
with
this
this
cycle.
one for now.
So I know your schedule is difficult coming up. Do you think it is reasonable within the next month for us to have met individually, you bringing your evaluation to me so we can go over it and I can hear your evaluation? Does that seem reasonable, Gordy?
No. What I think is reasonable is I take Cindy's and Sue's points. I think they're right on track. I think we need to have two timetables. Your evaluation should have been done a month ago. That needs to be done now. For the future, those two will be on the board. I will not be. There needs to be a form created in the next month so you know what's expected, we know what we want. So two separate things. Today's evaluation needs to be done now. It was supposed to be done a month ago. And I will go along, I will pretty much give you anything you want, because you're going to be the two board members who will be here. But I think that needs to be done in a month, so he knows what's expected of him. And we also have in place so that it's not, you two won't have to do it with next year. So my recommendation
But I think that's what we
is,
said.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
know
what we
that,
said.
I'm clear, what I try to do is
Okay.
codify what you two both had good ideas, and what I'm trying to say is, those were good points, but those should be done in a month, but his valuation right now should this form now done, as soon as possible. That's my opinion.
So just set something up with each of us, and then we have to discuss it.
Just
at-
like last year.
Watch me flip the script. Let me know when you can meet with me.
I don't
Yeah,
have
that's
my
easy.
calendar
That's
in
Not right
front
now.
of me.
Not right now,
That's
just
easy. I mean,
offline.
over the next few weeks, I'm sure that between the three of us, we can
Awesome.
make those connections. And last year, we did the numbers game and
Yeah.
then sorted it out. It was kind of interesting to do.
And then the actual evaluation gets done at a public meeting, right?
The way the law reads is that there's a consolidated evaluation that gets presented out, so
One
you get
consolidated,
the
yeah.
consolidated numerical rating and then comments,
Right.
the comments from each board member
Right.
into one document.
It worked out well last year, I think, the way we did it, with considering the form.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Lovely. That's all I have, thank you.
All right, Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, and reports, Mr. Clark.
I think Sue goes before me.
Well,
Sue actually doesn't have any because she
Oh, I didn't know that.
she crossed those out.
All right.
but we'll go to Clark. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I just being respectful to Sue that I didn't want
Thank
to
you,
jump on.
appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. I have a lot of stuff here, so please be patient with me. But I'll try to be quick. The first thing, Mr. Kryler, I have update on use of town council. Could you please tell us where we stand on that? I know it's been going on for a long time, and I would like to get this policy done as soon as possible.
Yeah, Sue and I worked on this. There was one outstanding piece that we're going to come back to the board on, which is specific to how individual members of the board can or cannot interact with town council. And I think it's just a matter of printing it and getting it on your next agenda. It won't be resolved because I think it still is, it's a little clunky. But the hang-up is if the use of town council form currently requires it to funnel through the TA position just for cost control and management purposes, what if the action for which guidance is being sought is about the TA? You're obviously not going to come and say, hi, Mr. Town Administrator or Madam Town Administrator, we want to talk to council about you, will you approve it? So it becomes an issue of the board. If it's a complaint against the town administrator, I think Sue's concern was if she hears about it and we had the policy written that individual members of the board could go with the approval of the chair, she'd have to speak to you, which then means it's an open meeting law issue, which
So
means...
you just need an exception in
Right,
that
which
kind of
means you end up then having to almost prematurely
The other thing
have an issue.
The other thing that I don't think I mentioned, but I was concerned with too, is I know we have a right to speak with town council individually if it has to do with anything regarding ethics or question regarding ethics for ourselves individually. So that's kind of like exempt from that as well. So I think we just need to document those couple of things.
Okay. So, next meeting, we'll have that draft.
Thank you for that, and Sue, thank you for your work. I have to tell you, I don't know what draft I've seen. I've seen a couple little things there, and I think you two have been working diligently, but I just have one point that I need a little information from you, Mr. Crowell, when it's possible. I'm requesting to receive all documentation, only so I can figure out where to put this in the policy. All documentation on contact between people without official standings in town government with town council in the past, and who are not elected office. And also, if there's any billing information about that, and if there was, and to be briefed on any meetings that you or someone else that I wasn't part of, or to be briefed on any meetings between town council and you.
Can you do that again?
Okay. I need to have any documentation on any contact between people without official standings in the town government with town council that you have knowledge of, while they were not elected officials, all right? So I can have that put into policy.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, if there was any meetings between town council and you, or Carolyn, or anyone else that was on the board regarding if there was contacts, I would like to be briefed on that. If there wasn't, then that's fine. All right?
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you. And then, if we could get those,
And what did you say about billing?
if there's any billing that occurred because of anything like that, if there isn't, then that's fine too.
Well, those would all be logged in the
Again,
invoice.
I don't have, so I'm just asking, and the point is that I just think, I think the work you people have done are good, but I think we need to make sure who has access to town council. That's
Gotcha,
all.
okay.
Okay. Next, if that's all right, I'll go on to public records and proper storage. Just give me a moment, please. Mr. Crowley, do you have any information on this matter at all, on public records and proper storage? No? Well,
Yeah.
okay.
More than information, I guess I have concerns. I've been here a little over 2 years now, and I know of specific instances where there have been reports of public records that have been either removed or destroyed that we have an obligation to know more about, but we haven't been able to get the information. I know from conversations with you, Mr. Clark, that you have also been advised by prior employees about having participated in that effort of removing or destroying documents.
And just for the record, when that occurred, it was maybe a year ago or more, I notified the official people who were responsible for those records.
Correct.
And it's documented.
Correct. An additional part of that that's a little more specific is I was recently made aware of the fact that while some public records were being sought, while action was being taken to see if public records existed on a computer, only to find out that they didn't exist on the computer, I came to know that the individual who had use of that computer actually wasn't using it as much as he was using his personal laptop, which presents a host of other concerns. Does that laptop exist, and if it exists, do public records exist on it? If they do, and they're not in our custody, that's a problem. If public records have been removed from the town's physical possession, its buildings, not in copy, but in total, that's a problem. I just learned that last week, so that's something that's being pursued right now as well. I know that the board sought a ruling from council regarding the public record data regarding access, the FOBs. I don't know what FOB stands for, but the doohickeys that you use to swipe yourself into the building at the police department. And that information was being withheld under a different chief. It's currently being sought now. But there is a writing from council that says that is the board's prerogative to have that as a part of its consideration for.
And he directed him to preserve those.
He did. He did. It was, council directed the then employee to preserve those records. So in terms of public records and proper storage, those are concerns that I know are historic, at least in the 2 years that I've been here. And with the exception of the laptop, which is relatively new, I'm not certain that anybody knew that, at least outside of the department or in the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Kryler. Just a brief is that it's two things, the public records and proper storage. On the public records, I believe that there may be, and I stress may be, probable cause, reasonable suspicion, and concern about destruction of public records. This concern involves multiple events involving multiple records in multiple departments. And then you covered the FOBs and town council directing people to save them. Also, I have concerns at this point that I believe the Secretary of State should somehow be involved in this. This is isolated. Again, these aren't accusations, but I believe we have probable cause, reasonable suspicion, and concerns. I would like the Secretary of State's office, if that's the appropriate thing, to be involved. And then when it goes to proper storage on my thing here, I have concerns. Records that we're responsible for have been, in the last year or two, have been found in desks out here in buildings with public access. They've been public records, some of them confidential, highly confidential, been found 60 miles away from Townsend in locations, criminal records, videos, and computer records. And nobody can tell me where they are. And I think we have an obligation to, first of all, know where those records are and the people that those records were about, because civilians saw names on those records when they found the desk out here. I don't know if we're obligated to tell people that their public records were laying around. I don't know those questions. But I do know that public records were found 60 miles from our place here that involve criminal records, videos, and computer records. Those are facts by outside agencies. Over 2 years ago, some of these things came to light, but unfortunately more and more comes to light all the time. And so kicking the road down the road, it just makes it hard to find out where these are. And people have a right to know if their public records involving them are being disseminated or just irresponsibly stored. We need to know where they are and whatever. I'm not the expert in that.
On the issue of records that were, and these are police records, these are in some cases Corey records that were in the municipal garage. It was best explained by the former chief that there was a space that was for lease down in the Harbor Mall by the police department, inside of which there were desks, inside of which there were files. And when they vacated the space, some of the furnishings were moved to the municipal garage. And it appears, based on the staff person who's not a police officer that has access to the garage, who located the files, that they were left there. They were left in the drawers. The chief, at the time, the former chief, was given those documents. I don't know that there's a record or a file of what they were.
I'd like to know
we can find what exists. The issue of the surveillance video, some Corey records and some other police records that were found in Essex. I know, based on the report that I've seen from the outside agency, that those were handed over also to the prior full-time police chief. Beyond that, I don't know where they went or if there's a record of specifically what they were, but
I would like to know that they're secure, and I don't know if the board wants to, but I think at this point, we need the expertise and also to be lawful for the law, the Secretary of State, I think, at this point. And one other thing is, this isn't all about one department. There's a couple places, and we're not going to get into it, where we know that public records were destroyed, all right? And I would like to know whatever, you know what I'm saying, what the appropriate actions is, but I think people have the right to know where these are. So I think...
Filing this under being akin to calling the IRS to ask questions about your taxes, which I don't think anyone would choose to do given other choices. I don't know that I would run yet to the Secretary of State's office until we have a better sense of if it exists now. If it exists and we can put four corners around what it was, we probably then have an obligation to go. But right now, I think there's an intermediate step that we should be taking locally.
But, and I take your points, I always listen to your opinion, but it's 2 years we're building this post here, all right?
Yep.
So guess what? After 2 years, and more occurrences keep showing up.
Agreed.
Am I right on this?
You are.
All right. So the bed,
I'm really worried about the weather.
okay, I'm sorry, I'll try to be fast here. So, can you get my train? Yes, the point is that it goes on, and I think it gets to a point where we have an obligation to let people who know about the stuff more than us. That's all, simple as that.
Fair enough. I got you.
Thank you. So we're worried about the weather. I'll try to move on fast here. Okay, I have here, I'm sorry you two don't have it, but I can leave them here, is I'm doing a update on the request of the accounting that was done by the full board unanimous on September 29, 2015, and 27. The reason I'm bringing this up is that...
Is this a public record?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's been released for quite a while. But again, the reason I want an update is that we never got an update of things, but there's other things that continue to keep coming up.
Oh, 2015.
Yes. And you want me to continue, or you want to say them, Mr. Bradley?
I'll take a crack at it. It's become a perennial question that has not yet been answered. So there was a lease space down on the Harbor Mall, inside of which was some equipment. The board, within its prerogative, asked for some information, some accounting of what the equipment was, whose it was, where it came from. The board is the only legal authority that's authorized to accept equipment. And there's a writing from council on point, I think, that goes back to 2015 on that. And it's just never been done. For whatever reason, that information was never provided, even though the board had asked that it be provided.
And then things continue to keep, so we never got answers to that, except for that maybe our children at carnivals were being surveilled. But besides that, I never got any more information about what was going on down there. But the other concern I have is that there was money allocated at town meeting for raises that was never spent on raises for personnel. Where did that money go? I'm still asking that. I think we have an obligation to know where that money goes. People at town meeting appropriate money, they have a right to know if it didn't go where it was supposed to go, where is it? But there's also ongoing things that have come forward, which I'm not in a position to talk about today here, that keep on coming up with in relation to the activities there. And I think it's no longer, I think it's over 6 figures. So, positively believe it's over 6 figures. I'll move on, if that's all right.
I've got my notes on that.
Thank you. And I'll move on now, because we're probably at 5.5 inches out there. And the last thing is just a little clarification at special town meeting. I have, do you have one of these here? I don't know. Just on the top thing. I'll read it and then I'll give it to you, all right?
Oh, all right.
So the people of the town appropriated that to pay back bills, standard procedure, but
What town meeting was this? This recent, the recent?
November 28th, 2017.
Oh, the one we just had?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first thing on there was a payment to a vendor named Richard Cowell Tactical for the police department, amount of $425. Well, I Googled Richard Cowell Tactical, and they're a company, you can Google, it's last spelled C-O-W-E-L-L Tactical. And I'm not a great, as everyone here knows and laughs about me, I'm not probably the most non-social media person in the world. But in Google, it told me that they're a high-level SWAT tactical team supplier in California. Well, after the town meeting, I found out that this coat, tactical assault vest, was bought for a David Mazda, a dispatcher. Well, my question is, one, I don't know where that money, he had allowance, but that's another story. My more concern is going to the internal affairs of a police agency in Essex County, where they allege that Mr. Mazda may engage in stolen valor, claiming war heroes, and that he was a police officer here, full-time trained, and a prosecutor, and other things, whatever. I want to know where an assault, besides the fact why the town bought this for a dispatcher, I want to know where that assault vest is. Watch the news. All right? I'm not saying anyone's done anything wrong, but if there's an assault tactical vest out there that the tax paid for, I want to know where it's at, all due respect. Because I don't want to see in the news that, God forbid, not him or someone else got a hold of this vest, and some bad things happened. It would bother me, and I think we're liable. I want to know where that vest is. So that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Can I see that?
Absolutely. Anything, Mr. Fowler?
No, I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I think that I've talked enough tonight, so I'm not gonna, all right, 2 seconds. My usual, I know, I did talk to you earlier about my request that I get an update on the IT contract
Yes.
every meeting.
Yep.
So if you could just.
Very briefly,
give a
the-
real quick overview of what we
At the
talked
last
about.
meeting, I reported out that the IT grant through the Community Compact would go live and become available on the 15th. That was yesterday, so in fact didn't go live until this morning. And first thing this morning, Bassam requested the login information so we'd get our password to be able to begin the application. So as of today, there's a draft that's begun to be inputted for the application based on all the work that Bassam did in advance in anticipation of the grant opening.
Great, thank you. Okay, did you have anything you wanted to do as an update? Okay.
Oh, just the website, the calendar, what's going on? How come things aren't
I
out
don't know
there?
why it wasn't being done.
Well, maybe you could just look into
Yeah,
it.
Cindy today found that the budget, the tab that said FY18 budget was not the FY18 budget, so that's been fixed. So we're still finding glitches as
But
we
it
roll the
seems
thing out.
like, people are setting up meetings, and for some reason,
It's not hitting the
it's
calendar.
not hitting the calendar. And it's just a convenient way for even, I'm speaking for myself, I just want to know when meetings are.
Absolutely. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of meeting minutes for November 28th and December 15th.
Because we're going to hold December 20th.
December 20th, we're going to hold.
Okay, so I move that the board approve the meeting minutes for November 28th, 2017, and December 15th, 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairman?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll make it real quick. I just thought of something, I'm getting old. My blessed time with you two professionals is coming to an end soon. I would just request that any executive sessions that require my vote not be released, but that be approved before I just leave.
I've got drafts of several that'll be available for your next meeting, should be your next meeting.
Oh, okay.
You-
Yeah, well, I want to be caught up on minutes anyway.
Right, but, I know, but no, just executives, because they're ongoing, and they're not ready to be released, so
Oh,
we're covered.
yeah, but we should-
But my participation is going to end,
Right,
so I just want to sign off on my...
on the minutes. Okay,
That's all.
That's fine, that's fine.
You know, to make it
That's
clean
an easy
for whoever
one.
comes
Yeah,
in.
that's
So
an
we're not
easy
saying we didn't do it because we couldn't release them, because they're ongoing. But on the other hand, whatever I
Right,
got for
okay.
input, I want. Is that right? Am I saying that right, Mr. Crowley? Thank you.
Okay, 4.4, review inside payroll.
Second?
I move that we review and sign the
I had a
payroll
move and a second.
and bills
All those in
payable
favor?
warrants
Aye.
out session.
Out of session, right, I heard that.
So everyone
Okay,
be safe from the
what's the
roads.
final motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye,
Tell
to
everyone to be
adjourn
safe
at
from the roads.
like 9:09 or something.